Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Market Open. We are live. It is Thursday, August 27th. I should not be yelling because I think I talked enough yesterday and yelled enough yesterday to the point where my voice, it's not giving out, but it's definitely, I can definitely feel it potentially giving out. So I'm going to try to take it a little easy today in terms of the level of projection of my voice. It might be a little hard because those Nvidia earnings deserves a round of applause, and it deserves some analysis here because my goodness, what we saw last night was just unbelievable on every level. But at the same time, as unbelievable as it was, this is a stock market, and these stocks have to actually show us that we can get the results that these earnings are implying. And that's going to be the first thing that we talk about today. We'll get into it. Thank you all for being here. Nvidia up 6.3%. A lot to talk about, lots to get into. Now, again, this 6% is still lower than where it was last Tuesday. So it's not even that much about the price action. It's more so about the unbelievable type of growth that we got yesterday. It's the largest growth we've seen at the largest scale for many companies. So I think it's going to be really important to kind of analyze what's going on, why the street's excited, if the street's going to give it the benefit of the doubt in terms of the stock price, and quite frankly, how historic those numbers were, but also how historic the trajectory of guidance is at this scale. And I think if that comes together effectively, then maybe Nvidia breaks the trend of falling every time after earnings. And as a result, it kind of pumps the market because obviously Nvidia is a decent chunk of the market. S&P 500 right now is at 0.27% up, 768. You're seeing that green as well. On the S&P. Software had a great day yesterday. CrowdStrike's up 9%. Salesforce is up 10%. Okta's up 10%. Rubrik's getting a bid. They have earnings today. We have Marvell earnings, Iren earnings. So we got a lot more earnings to talk about today. Bitcoin actually getting some love, even with the 10-year kind of taking a little bit of a breather today, along with oil that's up a little bit. So you're seeing oil at 82 based on some of the stuff we got from Trump this morning around the Iran situation, which we will talk about. But it's nice to see Bitcoin and Nvidia kind of moving up together right here. CoreWeave up 3%, Nebius, Micron, everything in that semiconductor ecosystem is green because of those earnings. And we'll talk about why those earnings were so important and, hopefully what it can do to propel the entirety of this market as well. Having said that, I think that this is going to also be a very interesting day because tomorrow, you already had one of the Fed speakers talk at Jackson Hole, and we'll take a listen to Fed President Schmidt and what he said. It's once again a little bit more on the hawkish side around raising rates. You had PCE data that came in yesterday that was a little bit worse than expected. Not that much worse, but nonetheless, it was a concern around inflation. And then you got Kevin Warsh tomorrow. Kevin Warsh will be live at 12 p.m. Eastern. Yes, Marvell earnings are today. So is Iren, and so is a couple other companies. I'll be live with Tanner, Neil, and Jose again for the market close to cover those earnings. You have Workday, Affirm, Ulta, Rubrik. So you have a bunch of different earnings today. But I think Warsh's speech is going to be a nothing burger. Nonetheless, if it becomes a something burger, then the market's going to have to react to that. And honestly, even with the incredible level of results we got from Nvidia earnings, Kevin Warsh might end up, saying some stuff that the market doesn't like, especially if it's implying a rate hike, or even if it's not implying a rate hike, it's implying more hawkish tendencies from the Fed to think about the way they are perceiving inflation, and that in and of itself could take every stock down. So tomorrow's actually going to be a really important day, but obviously, Nvidia crushing earnings is doing what they needed to do, which was, what we needed. Yes, we also have jobless claims today. The macro data we got this morning was relatively inconsequential, nothing too crazy, but we'll talk about that. Jobless claims came in at 203,000 versus 208,000. So once again, labor market seems to be very strong, which is part of the reason why we are having this debate on if we're going to get rate hikes or not. So really, it's Nvidia earnings that I think will be the bulk of the price action. Say 33% for a potential rate hike going into September. It was at 40% yesterday, so it did come down a little bit, which is nice to see. All right, let's get into it. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Thank you, everybody, for being here. First of all, thank you guys yesterday for the support in the chat with Hannah. I know, like, we kind of made it like a joke of like, hey, when I say something funny, put the laughing emojis. But I told her I said that, so she was like, she thought that was hilarious, and she was watching the chat the whole time. So after the stream, she was just like, wow, your chat's like really fast and dynamic, and there's all these different perspectives in there. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of what we built here. She also was like, why are they spamming rainbow emojis? And I was like, okay, so I pitched Grinder 2 years ago, and I haven't been able to. And she was like, oh, I get it. And I was like, yeah. So I had to explain the rainbow emoji nonsense to her. And she also said, why are they wishing you happy birthday? And I was like, that's I guess they brought out all the inside jokes that we made over the past couple of years. It was like, I don't know why they randomly wish me happy birthday. Like, I don't even know how that inside joke started, just like randomly wishing me happy birthday. That started in 2023 and it carried on for like 2 years. A lot of you guys probably don't even know that inside joke. I don't even remember why we started an inside joke of wishing me happy birthday every day. But that was one of the inside jokes early on in 2023. And she's like, is it your birthday? Like, she texted me up. She's like, it's your birthday? I feel bad. I was like, no, it's not my birthday. It's people just decided to wish it to me for whatever reason. So yeah, overall it was fun. And I think she enjoyed it. I think she thought it was a really cool experience, kind of seeing the dynamics of how someone in the independent media, creates a stream and talks. I mean, her biggest thing was like, how did you talk for 3 hours and where did the energy come from? And I was like, honestly, the energy came from the chat. The fact that people show up every morning, the fact that people care, the fact that people are there every single day, morning and afternoon, it gives me so much energy to want to perform. And when we have really big market moving events like Nvidia, and you have to analyze that stuff, it's something that I like to wake up for and really be excited for and try to give good performance. So it was fun. It was a good time. I appreciate all the super chats of Amit saved my life and all this stuff. She thought it was hilarious, but also I thought it was like funny that you guys actually supported in that way by like playing into the joke so explicitly that it became even funnier when you guys played into the joke. And yeah, I just thought it was hilarious, and she really enjoyed it as well. So deeply, deeply, deeply appreciate everyone who brought the energy yesterday. Meant a lot. I think that article will be really cool, and it'll be nice to get some more mainstream business media coverage. And I think next year, as we kind of up level the production, we're going to be taking a lot of this stuff in the show to the next level. It should be even more fun going into 2027. So deeply, deeply appreciate it. And now we've got Nvidia to analyze based on those earnings. So let's get started. Here's my kind of overall high level take Nvidia right there, 221. That's up in the pre-market by about 5.3%. I could not find the red flag with this quarter. And I would challenge anyone, and not even in a sarcastic way, I deeply want to hear the bear case on this earnings, because I think this was the single best quarter Nvidia has ever put up from a numbers perspective and from a qualitative perspective in terms of explaining the actual trajectory of earnings and the results that they've been able to put up and why those results are so special. And the answers to every hard question, whether it was about open source or competition, Jensen crushed it. The street thinks so as well. JP Morgan, 280 to 320. Mizuho, 300 to 315. Melius Research, 400 to 425. Goldman Sachs, 285 to 300. Bernstein, 315 to 400. Citi, 300 to 315. Stifel, 282 to 315. Then you had UBS, who put out a 352 target 2 days ago. UBS says, you know what? We are raising it to $515. I had an opinion this year that Nvidia would not be able to end the year at 250 simply because I thought the market cap was too big. When the growth and the guidance of growth, which is more important than the growth this quarter, exceeds the most, even the wildest expectations, you have to adjust your price targets. And, I still think it might be hard for Nvidia to hold 250 just because of all the macro stuff. But if the macro stuff is resolved, there is no reason the stock should be under 300. I mean, it's just that simple. When you have this type of guidance of growth, it becomes unbelievable. What guidance am I talking about? There's a lot of numbers to go through, which we'll get into, but this is the big one. The street thought they would do 40% revenue growth next year. The street thought at some point this growth is going to decline significantly. Jensen put the floor at 70%. I know it's not 90, I know it's not 80, I know it's not 100, but you're 30% above next year's guide from what the consensus analyst estimates were. I mean, they asked them this question about, I think 3 quarters ago, and Jensen kind of joked about it. And he was like, well, we'll see what the guide looks like for next year. And now the guide is significantly higher, like meaningfully higher than what the street thought it would be. So with all the numbers that we have to get into, I think that was the most important number, because that just shows that even if you're bearish Nvidia, even if you think it's cyclical, even if you think, that the CapEx is not going to last forever, at its core, you've got another year of 70%. And if the year after that is anywhere near 50%, I mean, you're talking about basically 5 years in a row of 100, 90, 70, 50, like that's declining growth, but that's incredible levels of growth at their scale. And they're going to be buying back a lot of stock with the free cash flow that they get, because they basically guided for their margins to be, plus or minus 0.5% from that 75 level, which is basically based on memory pricing, not based on competition or demand issues. So from that perspective, it's like, my goodness,
Unbelievable. Revenue up 106% year over year, 106%. I don't think we've ever seen a company in the history of the stock market put up $96 billion of revenue, growing at 106% year over year in 90 days. They make more than $1 billion a day. I mean, it is unbelievable. Data center revenue, $89 billion. GAAP EPS of 128% year over year. Gross margin still 75%. They bought back $26 billion of stock. And then the Q3 revenue guidance also beat all expectations at $108 billion. So I don't know what's going to happen to the stock today, but if this stock somehow finds its way into the low 200s again, I think the buy price on Nvidia was kind of below 200 for the majority of people. At this point, 200's got to become a floor. And if it actually goes below 200, this has got to be the biggest screaming buy in the stock market just based on the sheer growth. I mean, it was so bad yesterday that Michael Burry bought calls before the earnings to hedge his short. Think about that. He's been shorting Nvidia for the past 6 months. He's deeply underwater on those shorts. He had to buy calls for earnings to hedge his shorts from going even more in the red. I mean, you can't make this up. Even he acknowledged, look, it's probably going to be a decent quarter, and I better have some upside long calls to hedge my red from going further in the red because Nvidia might end up crushing it. And they absolutely crush it. Now, maybe today the stock ends up falling for whatever reason, like it always does after the earnings. But yeah, and it was a smart thing to do. I agree. It was a smart thing to do because, if Nvidia actually goes up after earnings, then at least that stops the short from getting further obliterated. But the point is, even he was like, yeah, my short is underwater so bad that I don't want it to go even more underwater. I need to buy some upside protection in the form of calls. And, Nvidia tanked on earnings immediately, went to like 205. And I think everyone was just like, this doesn't make sense. And as soon as Jensen started talking, you saw the stock start to get a rebound and you got some more momentum. So from that perspective, it's one of those things where, once again, I think the broader implications for this is, and this is kind of the biggest thing we talked about, and then we'll listen to some clips of Jensen. Their commitments went from 119 billion to basically 300 billion. What does that mean? That means basically Amkor, Micron, Nebius, SanDisk, all the Marvell, all the players in their supply chain, Nvidia told investors that we are effectively setting aside $300 billion over the next, I think it's like 7 years, to be able to pay out all our suppliers. Now, the bearish perspective on this is like, hey, Nvidia is, setting aside a lot of money to be able to pay all the companies that help them build what they're building. The bullish perspective, which just means that, there's more liabilities potentially on their balance sheet because they have all these purchase commitments that they have to fill. The bull case on that is, wait a second, that means Nvidia sees a lot of visibility into growth and demand because they would not be guaranteeing Micron or SK Hynix or Amkor any of these contracts in the form of purchase orders, because they know, if they didn't know, that they weren't going to get that type of growth. Again, Raymond James also upgrading Nvidia to 515, seeing a path for a $13 trillion valuation on Nvidia. Yeah, the CFO was great on the call. I thought Jensen was phenomenal on the call. A lot of the hard questions they answered simply by showing the numbers and also explaining what AI is doing and why AI is becoming meaningful. I mean, it was just one of those calls where, usually even I have something to nitpick about how I didn't like how certain things were answered or how I thought certain things could have been better. But this was one of those where I cannot find the red flag outside of hyperscaler concentration, which has always been a thing. 45% of the revenue is still, the big four companies, hyperscalers. You start to see some diversification into the Neoclouds. Jensen addressed that by saying we want to diversify the fleet of customers that we have, and we have this new revenue sharing model with the Neoclouds. But at its core, the hyperscalers are telling you there's going to be about $800 billion in CapEx. Jensen's guiding to more like 1.3 trillion. JP Morgan came out today and said we kind of see it to 1.4 to 1.5 trillion. I would trust Jensen on what he thinks Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and Meta are going to spend. By the way, Amazon also agreed yesterday to buy 2 million new GPUs, which is just incredible because they've already got a lot of GPUs, but they're only buying those GPUs because AWS is growing at 37%. Right, GCP, Azure, they're only agreeing to buy all these GPUs early, which is why I think Jensen's able to give this visibility into Vera Rubin, because they, have to supply a ton of demand that they're having, which shows that the proliferation of AI is happening across the entire ecosystem. So, from that perspective, I think it made sense. I think this means that NVIDIA is having a better opportunity to win when it comes to a lot of the debates around if AI is a bubble or if AI can continue to show an ROI. And I think Jensen is showing that the ROI is absolutely there. He also answered some questions around other companies like OpenAI competing with them with their own new chips that they're putting out.
And I said, you know what? The whole time I've been working on something, a chip that I think can really hurt you. It's called jalapeno. I don't know. Let's call it, tomatillo. And you said to me, well, that's fine. Would you really say that's fine? Because I personally would be hurt if OpenAI did to what they do to NVIDIA, if they did to me?
You know, I'm okay with it,
Yeah.
Jim. There's so many XPUs that are being announced. And as we know, it's not easy doing what we do. We've been doing this for 33 years. And so lots of projects get started, lots of projects gets canceled. We're here to support our partners, and we're going to build the world's best technology. I have every confidence in that. We're going to be the most productive infrastructure that they have. I have every confidence in that. We have the supply chain and the technology scale to be their largest supplier. I have every confidence in that. And so, you know, I don't have to take anything personally because I've got so much confidence in what we're able to deliver. And look at all of the XPU announcements and all the startups that have been announced. And yet today, NVIDIA is increasing our market share of the AI market, where our growth is accelerating, our technology leadership is extending. And so I'm very comfortable with all the competition.
Okay, and
I thought that was a really good answer. It was the classy answer, right? Because at the end of the day, you know, I think in general in life that the best way to be a winner is not by you know, putting down people that aren't winning, but rather just saying, look, they're going to do their thing. I'm going to do my thing. I'm focused on myself. They are allowed to compete. It's a free economy. They can do whatever they like. But at the end of the day, the market's going to pick the better product. And Jensen's effectively saying we have the better product. And so even though I gave these guys $30 billion, which they're probably using to build a chip that's competing with me, they're going to have to actually compete in a way that is substantial enough to take market share away from NVIDIA. So I think just the level of confidence he has in their ability to execute has been exceptional. And, you know, he answered questions around open source and closed source in the right way, basically said there's a world of both models succeeding. He's acknowledging Anthropic and OpenAI are going to be monumental and consequential companies, but he's also acknowledging that open source is really important. By the way, why is he acknowledging that open source is really important? Why is NVIDIA pushing Nemotron? Well, it goes back to the same reason that Anthropic and OpenAI are starting to compete with their chip business. So they have to compete in the model layer in order to continue remaining competitive. On top of the open source question, another piece of news came out last night. I don't know if people saw this, but Hugging Face, one of the biggest routers for open source models, NVIDIA bought them yesterday for $13 billion. Last year, Hugging Face turned down a $500 million NVIDIA investment at a $7 billion valuation. Yesterday, the information reported that NVIDIA just bought the whole thing. Why does it make sense? OpenAI is designing chips with Broadcom, Anthropic with Trainium, Google with TPUs. Open models are the counterweight when Meta or Mistral or DeepSeek releases weights. Millions of developers download them, fine-tune them, and serve them overwhelmingly on NVIDIA GPUs through CUDA. Hugging Face is where the entire world lives. This is why the cybersecurity attack on Hugging Face a couple of weeks ago through OpenAI was such a big deal. If you buy the hub and you own the distribution layer for one corner of AI, that likely is not going to leave when your competitors are trying to have different rivals to open source models. So the fact that NVIDIA put $20 billion into Grok like it was nothing, and then $13 billion for Hugging Face, again, like it's nothing, it's 13 days of revenue for NVIDIA, is quite incredible. But it does mean that Jensen's really acknowledging how important open source is and making sure that's integrated into his ecosystem while supporting the frontier labs. So I think it's like very strategic what they're doing. They're covering every base that they need to cover in order to make sure that this growth is sustainable and that the trajectory of the growth does not slow down. So once again, I ask, what is the bear case outside of something in the macro? What is the bear case on this earnings? And I just don't see it. And I really just don't see it. And I think for that reason, you know, that's why NVIDIA is getting the love that it's getting. Here's a clip of when Jensen was asked how they're actually able to grow 70% for next year when Wall Street was only expecting 40%.
First of all, demand is super strong, and incredibly, it's accelerating. You know, obviously, we're already a very large company, but to be able to grow continuously and now to accelerate our growth is pretty extraordinary. Now, what's happening underneath, the things that are going on, number one, is that AI is now useful. It's doing productive work. And the tokens that are being generated by these AI labs are now profitable. People are paying good money to use it because it's really productive. It's helping them, you know, do things and be more productive. And so the amount of tokens they want to generate is increasing because of use. The amount of tokens they're generating is increasing because the AI models are more complicated. And then now, because it's profitable, they have so many more customers who want to use it. The thing that's holding them back is compute. And so that's literally one pillar of what's happening in our business. And then after that, we're seeing AI being adopted all over the world. Every single country wants to get involved. Every company wants to get involved. And so half of our business is in the hyperscalers, and the other half of our business is everything else. It's Neoclouds and sovereign clouds and enterprise companies. And all of this is all growing at the same time. And this is all happening, of course, at a time when we're rolling out Vera Rubin, our next generation product. It's going to be.
Now, the other reason this was so important is because the market asked Jensen on the call, hey, could you guys grow even faster next year? And Jensen said, if we were not supply constrained even this quarter, it would have been higher than 106% year-over-year growth. I think the exact number he gave was like, we have about 70% visibility into our revenue. The other 30% is constrained by supply, which is why Amcor is up in the pre-market. Why is Amcor up? Ironically, after Nvidia earnings, Nvidia has mentioned Amcor time and time again as a strategic partner. Well, Bank of America initiates coverage with a $70 price target. I'm telling you, Bank of America is not initiating coverage on Amcor the day after Nvidia earnings if Nvidia doesn't crush it, or Bank of America doesn't feel that the supply chain is so sophisticated and strong and has such a trajectory for upside based on Nvidia's comments last night. They wouldn't initiate coverage on the stock because they would feel that maybe some of the supply chain is going to be weaker, or they're not going to have the type of purchase orders that they need from companies like Nvidia. Nvidia basically guaranteeing the amount of purchase commitments they're going to have for all these companies, and saying that we are still only 70% available to capture that demand because of the structural constraints, which means there's another 30% of upside if those constraints can get resolved over the next 2 years. That gives credence to Marvell, SanDisk, Amcor, Intel, Bloom Energy, all those names that are up right here in the pre-market. Bullish DRAM. I mean, it's one of those things where the entire supply chain that was going crazy in the month of June when we had the semis get to the level that they got to, Cerebras right there up 3%. I don't know if we get back to those all-time highs. I'm a little skeptical of that just because the macro is still a bit uneasy. And at the end of the day, the market's really got to clear up some of these concerns around inflation, interest rates, the Iran war, et cetera. But if there was ever a Nvidia earnings where you would think Nebius should easily get back to 280, 290, it would be this one. In fact, Nebius got a mention on the call in and of itself. So, it's going to be up to the market now. If we dump today, I wouldn't be surprised because the market is concerned about a bunch of other stuff. But that earnings, I think, solidified a decent chunk of excitement and relief from people that are bullish on the AI ecosystem. And now we just got to see if the market overall continues to reward it. So that's what we got. Put in the chat. Were you excited about the earnings? Happy with the earnings? I mean, I know the stock went down immediately and people were kind of pissed off and annoyed, but once the stock started going up and you started hearing Jensen answer questions in the way that he did, along with the true grasp of what these numbers looked like, I thought it was pretty special. Let's talk about the software company. So Salesforce is up 9%. They had a good print. They had a good quarter. Stock was dead for the majority of the year. So the fact that software is coming back makes sense for Salesforce to get the momentum that it got. The issue with Salesforce's earnings is I think Mark Benioff essentially accepted defeat when it came to Agentforce, as he has now teamed up with Anthropic, in his words, the #1 AI model. And they are now rebranding it to Claudeforce. Take a listen to what they said yesterday. It's the first interview Dario's ever done publicly with the business media. And we'll talk about what this partnership looks like after you hear this.
This is the #1 AI in the world, Anthropic, and the #1 CRM, Salesforce, coming together for the first time in an incredibly powerful way to build a new product called Claudeforce. It's really a first in the industry, Jim. We've never seen anything like it. It's completely exciting. I think that this is the way all enterprise systems are going to run in the future.
We found that this combination product that we've built together is the most useful thing in accelerating it. Within Anthropic, for a long time, we've been accelerating the research teams within Claude. But this is the first time that we've really been able to incredibly accelerate our go-to-market efforts within Claude. And we want that for all the other enterprises. And me and Mark want to bring it together to everyone. We've already worked with Salesforce in a number of ways. We're big users of Salesforce. Salesforce is big users of Claude Code, of Cowork, of other tools. We put products like Claude Tag in Slack already, which is a part of Salesforce. And now this combination is a way to gain something that's, it's 1 + 1 = 3, something that's bigger than the sum of its parts. My chief commercial officer was just demoing this for me with some of the internal stuff we do within Anthropic, just half an hour ago, where he asked, what are the biggest accounts that Anthropic is trying to close now? Like, give me a list of the biggest accounts. Talk me through the risks of each one. All the data, all the information comes from being managed in Salesforce. But the conversation, the interaction, that comes through Claude. And so you can see how these two things can be more than the sum of their parts.
Okay, so is it just me? Genuinely, I'm asking this question. Is it just me? Or did Dario just describe a chatbot inside of Salesforce powered by Claude is the partnership between Salesforce and Claude? So chatting with your data in Salesforce, which I think you've been able to do for the past 2 years now via Agentforce, using any of the models you wanted, I guess in this case, they're preferring Claude, is the partnership between Claude and, like, I'm listening to that and I'm like, okay, the stock is up because, you know, market likes that the company that was supposed to kill you is now working with you, because, you know, when people talk about things that can be replaced through SaaS, I mean, Salesforce does come up more often than not. You've already heard multiple companies on earnings say that we got rid of Salesforce and we just built our own platform. But now it's like, okay, so Dario is working with you because the preferred LLM that's going to be answering questions with the data in Salesforce is Anthropic. I'm like, my perspective is like, what is special about that? That's my only question. Like, what is so exciting about that, other than the rebranding of Agentforce to Claudeforce? Like, is there something deeper than just chatting with your data using Claude, which again, I think you've been able to do with any of the models over the past couple of years, or is this just marketing and PR? And it feels more like marketing and PR. From Dario's perspective, it's very interesting. For those that are wondering why would Anthropic agree to this, I think there's two simple reasons. Number one, they're going public. And I think having someone like Benioff, who is a public CEO, who has been a public CEO for the past 20 years, who knows how to communicate with the public, who knows how to, you know, do the interviews and talk to people and say the stuff that the sell side wants to hear. I think essentially Dario is being coached by Benioff on how to actually talk to the media, because you need to be able to communicate if you want people to buy your stock, if you definitely want the analysts to upgrade your stock. And then number two, it's probably a go-to-market strategy that's convenient for Anthropic, because Salesforce has, what, 350,000 customers? So theoretically, Anthropic can have an enterprise strategy. I mean, they've already been doing well in the enterprise, but they can, you know, more meaningfully penetrate that enterprise. The question that I think a lot of people are having is, wait a second, is Anthropic going to train a lot of their models now on these CRM, customer relationship management conversations that people are having on Salesforce's data, and in the background potentially be working on something that is going to be very competitive with Salesforce? Is Dario that ruthless? I mean, we saw what they did with Figma. They announced a partnership with Figma, and then 2 weeks later, they put out a product that looked very similar to what Figma had. So it begs the question, like, what is this partnership actually going to look like? Having said that, you know, Salesforce stock being up, I think it makes sense. I thought the earnings were good. I thought, you know, the stock was obviously undervalued over the past couple of months, just given where SaaS was going. A lot of the SaaS names came back. ServiceNow did not come back. CrowdStrike also had a good earnings. We'll talk about that. ServiceNow got a bump after hours because of that. Palantir got a bump off all these software names going higher. So, like, SaaS is back, and that makes sense. And SaaS created one of the best opportunities this year for people to take a nibble and be able to just get names that were down 40, 50%, really for no reason. But the partnership here does not feel like it's going to meaningfully accelerate growth. Maybe it does, but at the end of the day, if it's just chatting with your data, I don't know what's so special about that. So regardless, the good thing is the market likes it. You got earnings growth. You got Nvidia crushing it. I mean, it's not like software is failing and semis are winning or vice versa. You got Bitcoin coming back. You got oil at least calming down a little bit this week. You got bond yields, which were at 4.73 on Monday. They're now at 4.62. You've got a lot of things in the broader macro that are coming together. You have Iran Marvell today. Hopefully they have some good earnings. And I don't know. It seems like a lot of pieces to the puzzle are coming together on how this bull market might shape out. We obviously have some external events with this Iran war that we'll talk about that are still a bit of an issue. But it doesn't feel like this is the worst thing that we're seeing with Nvidia and the SaaS companies doing what they need to do. Why did crypto pump it up? Well, we got to 80,000 last night. I actually don't know why we got to 80,000. I was asleep when it was happening. I woke up. We're still up. I mean, it's better than 77.5, right? We're at like 79.2 right now. So the fact that it's up is nice to see. It looks like crypto is not going back to 60,000. It looks like Bitcoin's going to kind of normalize at this level, and that's going to help a lot of different assets continue to get some more momentum when it comes to that crypto ecosystem. SpaceX's Elon Musk, David Sachs are going to be joining Sam Altman and NVIDIA's Jensen Huang at a G20 event. So you've got a lot of those executives coming to that event together. Yes, the Moderna did a $2 billion convertible note. That stock's down 5%. It was down 5% yesterday, so down about 10% over the past 2 days. A couple of days ago, it was up 20% after being down 20% the day before. Volatility is massive in this stock, but there's also a lot of option premium coming in on the call side. So you got Moderna right there. That's down 5%. CrowdStrike had a good earnings. Look, guys, I still think CrowdStrike's ridiculously overvalued. I don't understand how they still don't make money. Like, they're still not profitable. So it's one of those things where it's like, I get the cybersecurity stuff is really important, and growth did accelerate to a whopping 26% up from 23%, which again, you're looking at some of these other software companies growing at 80%, 90%, and they don't have the multiple that CrowdStrike has. And so you're like, okay, why is the street so excited to give them the multiple? And I think it's because the street's thinking, look, they're going to accelerate growth to 30, 40, 50% going into the next couple of years as cybersecurity becomes more important. And if that's true, then I think that's why you give the multiple. But that multiple is more than baked in my opinion. So this was a great quarter for CrowdStrike. As you can see right here, CEO says the mythos moment translated into mass market acceptance that AI adoption needs security, and that's CrowdStrike. Every enterprise will run on AI and securing its largest market opportunity in our history. I just think the risk reward on net new positions in CrowdStrike, Palo Alto, et cetera, after these guys have run massively. And again, in my opinion, I don't think they really put up the growth to justify the multiple they're getting. But qualitatively, the market cares so deeply about what's going on in cybersecurity that the market feels that growth is coming. And it's up to these companies to execute to show that growth is coming. And again, this is, CrowdStrike executed today. It was really good growth, but you're not seeing 40, 50, 60. You're not seeing those crazy levels that you would think if you thought cybersecurity was like the most important thing in the world. It's not there yet. But I think if it comes over the next year, then that's why these names will continue to hold on to their momentum. Speaking of cybersecurity, Nikesh, who is the CEO of Palo Alto Networks, one of the largest cybersecurity companies on the planet, he actually made some headlines yesterday by effectively saying that Neoclouds are horrible businesses. He said, in 2 years from now, you will be able to buy a Neocloud for less than they raise at today. Just saying. Neoclouds are CapEx and IRR business. When supply-demand finds balance, equity will normalize. Equity to fund CapEx only works in a euphoric market. I thought it was ironic that he's saying it's a euphoric market because like Palo Alto's multiple is also kind of reflecting a little bit of exuberance and euphoria here. But I thought that was interesting. Nikesh has been more active on X now, posting content. And the fact that he went and decided to explicitly say that he thinks Neoclouds are a bad bet. I mean, in 2 years from now, you'll be able to buy a Neocloud for less than they are raising at today. I don't know if he's necessarily talking about the Nebiuses and the Coreys of the world, the more established players, but I think he's talking about all of these like smaller labs that are raising at like a $5 billion valuation, saying that the only reason this is happening is because of the supply-demand imbalance that's happening in compute right now, which, as per Jensen's comments, is going to last for a while. So, maybe his thesis is right, but if that supply-demand imbalance continues to last, same thing with memory, these compute companies like the Neoclouds are going to get a higher multiple, even if that multiple is not necessarily sustainable. But you did have that commentary from him when it came to Neoclouds. Did you see Michael Burry's tweet? I did not. Let's see if it's about NVIDIA. I would imagine. Oh, our boy Ed Zitron just did a podcast called Diary of a CEO. You guys probably know that podcast. It's one of the biggest ones in the world. It has like 400,000 views in less than 5 hours. It was posted this morning. And if you go through the comments, I talked about this before, every comment agrees with him. Every freaking comment agrees that AI is a bubble. I mean, I think that's why there's still alpha in this market, because the general masses just hate this concept of AI and, the data center boom and all this stuff. Like 2.5 hours, Zitron is saying what he says, and every single comment agrees with it. So, I mean, there's a lot of animosity towards what we're having from AI. Burry tweeted, the institutional imperative is powerful and rarely fails in its subversion of thought. I'm not sure what exactly he's trying to say right there, but I am going to be very curious to see what he says about NVIDIA. I mean, he's had various bear cases about NVIDIA over the past couple of years. Definitely over the past couple of months as he's initiated the short position. I am really curious. I mean, Zitron, this podcast he did was before NVIDIA earnings. I am so curious to be like, what are they going to call out here? Accounts receivable, purchase orders, like they raised growth from 40 to 70%. Like you can't even say the growth is going to slow down, the CapEx is going to slow down, because NVIDIA wouldn't be able to guide to 70% for next year, not for next quarter, for next year, if you didn't think you had visibility into growth. So I'd be very, very curious to just hear what the bear case is, because right now, it's just not that explicitly apparent to me. Micron right there, that's up 3%. Bloom, that's up 5%. And Nebius, that is up 6.1% as well. What do you think Iren does on earnings? I have no idea, but let's just say Nvidia set up a layup for Iren to crush it. Like if Iren actually has a crappy earnings due to a lack of execution, I think people are just going to start wondering what is going on. Like, is this company just a piggy bank for the CEOs? Because the last deal they got was in September with Microsoft. It has been a long time. Nebius and CoreWeave have got multiple deals in that time, and Iren has the most contracted capacity for power. So why are they not getting deals? Like, what is going on? I don't even think it's crazy to be like, you're being too impatient. It's been a year since their last big deal. The deal they announced a couple months ago was some like AI develop. They didn't even name the companies they were working with. They said AI developers. It's so weird. It's like, what is going on? So I'm going to be looking in to see what they show on the print today. And if we don't get a big deal, which I'm expecting we do, because if we don't, I'm like, what are they going to talk about? Like you paid the Golden State Warriors $50 million, which I don't even have a problem with, but like, what are we going to talk about if you're spending money on basketball teams and you can't actually land any level of a meaningful contract above a couple $1 billion when you have the most contracted power capacity? So I think it's all about execution, and that's going to be really important today. I think Marvell's going to crush as well. I think Marvell's absolutely going to crush. 253 right there. That's up 3.25%. I think the stock is at a nice little run though, from 206 to 250. So I'm not sure if the stock's going to have a massive move after hours to the upside, but I think their earnings will still be relatively good as well. Completely Lawless, thank you for the super chat. How many years away do you think compute supply demand imbalance is? I have to imagine 5+ years, as AI isn't even in businesses at large scale yet. Yeah, I don't know the answer to this question. I think it's hard to say 5 years. It's hard to say 10. It's not that hard to say at least 2. I would default to around that 3 to 5 range. The problem here when you try to get more years on this compute imbalance thing is that the hyperscalers will be getting negative free cash flow for the foreseeable future. Outside of Microsoft, that said, we're not going to be doing that. But if Microsoft spends a decent chunk of money, eventually their free cash flow is going to suffer as well. So how long are they going to be able to withhold that negative free cash flow? How long is the market going to punish them for having that negative free cash flow? I don't think we know. But if they start punishing them more aggressively, by the way, Wolf Research named Google their top pick for 2027 based on GCP acceleration and TPU acceleration, then they might start cutting back on that CapEx. Then again, if they do cut back on the CapEx, which would collapse the entire system, their growth would probably slow down because they need to keep spending on CapEx in order to fulfill their growth estimates on the cloud businesses that are growing upwards of 50% year over year. So I don't know what the answer is to that question, but Jensen definitely made it obvious that it's not 2027. And then, next year we'll see what it looks like for 28 and 29, but it does feel like this is going on for longer than expected. By the way, speaking of timelines, I've had a thesis here. As much as I love the humanoid robotics companies, I think they are not ready. And yesterday we got some news to kind of confirm that they might not be ready. SoftBank is in talks to acquire a majority stake in humanoid robotic maker 1X at $6 billion. OpenAI was going to acquire them, then they pulled out. 1X Robotics faces a down valuation to $6 billion after an unsuccessful $10 billion fundraise, and none of their Neo robots, remember that one of those robots went viral a couple months ago on X, got like millions of views, have yet to be delivered to customers despite 10,000 orders and their 2026 timeline. I really don't think the robots are anywhere near close, and that's not something original that I'm saying. Elon told us that on the earnings call, and I think the hype around humanoid robots, as much as I think it's the next wave of physical AI, it's going to take some time. Like, if you got private companies that are almost getting entirely acquired by SoftBank and facing down rounds, I mean, this is why I think Agility is going public via SPAC. Like, if they don't have the private money to fund them, because there's probably nothing excited that the private markets are willing to bet on there, then the robots are going to take some time. But if the robots can end up starting to get into motion around 2028, 2029, even if the CapEx slows down from the hyperscalers, then maybe there's this new surge of demand for overall semiconductors in general, which keeps the cycle going. So that's something that we're going to have to monitor. But that's going to be very important. By the way, a lot of you guys were asking about that intergalactic ambition that Leopold had in that Wall Street Journal article that we talked about yesterday. This is the full quote. I wanted to show it to people. Leopold wanted to buy galaxies. Some of his friends weren't always sure what to make of his intergalactic ambitions. He once left the room and they debated whether he was referring to physical galaxies or a type of private plane. No, he assured them when he came back, he meant galaxies. His idea was that advances in AI would soon unlock resources on a cosmic scale, enabling humans to colonize faraway planets. He planned to save money now so he could spend on galaxies, he told them, and make his mark across the universe. So when you see stuff like that, people start feeling a bit more skeptical around what's going on with AI and how exuberant it is. But then you see Jensen, put up the best numbers we've seen in history, address the whole circular financing stuff head on explicitly, and you start to feel a lot more comfortable about what's going on with AI. But I think it will be up to the market to figure out how much they feel NVIDIA's worth and how much exuberance is baked in or not baked into the multiple, and then ultimately how long they think this growth trajectory is going to last. Trump, this is what he posted yesterday on TikTok about Canada.
So this is Lake Ontario in Canada and in the United States, but we're going to make a little change. We're going to call it something different than Lake Ontario. We're going to call it Lake America. And all it takes is a good pen and some intelligence. So Lake Ontario, that's gone. Lake America. So now we have a lake, and now we have a Gulf, because we have the Gulf of America, and now we have Lake America without the of. Thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy Lake America.
So obviously the tensions between Trump and Canada are not slowing down. Canada came out today and they continue to reiterate their fight for sovereignty and their ability to continue making sure that tariffs are going to be reciprocal. It's really annoying that we have to deal with this back and forth in a world in which NVIDIA just had the best earnings. But I also think it sets up for whenever they do announce a deal, which I think will happen eventually, and a deal with Iran, which some of the updates we got this morning from the White House was basically saying we're not in any negotiations with Iran. I think they're saying that just to say that, but you put those two deals together, and we have really good NVIDIA earnings. I think we might have that broader market surge, but we have to see when that happens and if that happens going into the midterm season. All right, it is 9:30 a.m., the day after the best quarter in NVIDIA's history. The stock market is now open. All right, wake your ass up. Let's get into it. Nvidia, what do we have? 221. It was pushing 227 in the pre-market. You got a couple red candles from the pre-market, but we still are green, 6.2% on the day. Let's see what happens if we can actually break through. Robinhood's at almost 110 based on Bitcoin getting some love. AMD is at 480. I thought the NVIDIA earnings were super bullish for AMD. As Jensen mentioned, how much CPUs they're going to sell. Obviously, if they're selling that much, then Intel, ARM, AMD, they're also going to be selling a ton of CPUs. ServiceNow, there you go. That's up 5%. Software goes green. Salesforce up 14%. CrowdStrike up 11%. Palantir back to 180. SaaS is the winner so far today. NVIDIA 224. There you go. We got a $3 candle right there on NVIDIA. Let's see if that can get through 230. Let me check resistance on 230, but you are seeing the SaaS names come back. You should be seeing the semi names come back based on that NVIDIA earnings as well. Nebius trying to go for 230. Micron, can we push 1,000? We are at, interesting, Micron was at 980 pre-market, opens at 961. So that one ends up going red, or not red, but like red from the pre-market. Cerebras is also slightly red from the pre-market, only up 2%. Dell's going to have earnings soon. That one's flat. SMCI is up 1.5%. That is also down a little bit from the pre-market. CoreWeave at least is at 90. That's up. Uber, I think, is Netflix also down? Yeah, Uber, Netflix. Again, Uber, Netflix, Airbnb, they go opposite to growth stocks. I mean, they're not necessarily value names, but I think they're red because when all the high beta names are green, you have to have some names that end up going red. At least that's how this market has been playing out. And your Ubers, your Netflixes, Wendy's is red because Nelson Peltz is not actually going to be buying the business. They took out their bid, so that's why that's down 13%. But a lot of those names end up going the opposite when the growth stocks go green. Is Apple actually red? Apple red, yep. As growth is up, Apple goes red. CrowdStrike 13%, Salesforce 14%, SoFi. I don't know why SoFi is down, to be honest. Maybe all the fintechs are down. Yeah, they kind of are, so I guess it's moving with the fintechs. Affirm is down as well. NVIDIA is trying to hold 220.
it looks like it's not that stable. 30 million shares traded in the first 2 minutes of Nvidia. The fact that 30 million shares have been traded and there's enough sellers, there to keep it kind of at bay shows that it's going to take a little bit of work for it to get there, but it's also only 2 minutes. Maybe it'll take some time to see if that earnings reaction can get baked in. Intel, that's up 3%. Intuit, that's down 1.5. Microsoft, that's red on the day. AMD, I mean, look, I don't think NVIDIA's earnings was bearish for AMD, but if the market thinks AMD is not going to be growing anywhere near what NVIDIA is going to grow, and AMD's multiple is a magnitude above what NVIDIA's multiple is, especially going into next year, given the new growth rate we got from NVIDIA. I mean, maybe there's some people just selling AMD to buy NVIDIA. Maybe that's happening. But regardless, I would interpret it as more bullish for AMD, given how many CPUs Vera is signaling that the entire industry will be able to sell. NVIDIA trying to get 225 right here. Micron also, it's weird, guys, that the memory names are going down. Like, it's not weird because NVIDIA's price inflation is explicitly due to memory. So I think the street's just like, this memory pricing can't continue to get further up. Like, you're going to have too many big players like Apple and NVIDIA say, like, enough is enough. We need more supply, and pricing power can't increase for the memory names. But NVIDIA hit 225 for a second. At the same time, right now, the memory names have a very cheap forward multiple, and they have all the leverage when it comes to pricing power. So theoretically, the fact that the street's not giving them the multiple just means they're discounting the inevitable decline in that growth, even though they know that declining growth would still have these stocks be undervalued. Even if you put a 12 times PE on them right now, they have a forward PE of 7. So that would expand the multiple dramatically. But it's not something the street has been comfortable with for the past couple months now. Google 338, that loses some momentum below 340. That's actually weird that Google's getting hit. Amazon's getting hit. Well, to be honest, maybe the hyperscalers are getting hit because if Jensen said the CapEx is not slowing down, then once again, the trade all year has been when CapEx projections go up, the Mag 7 sell off. And they kind of went against that trend on the earnings when they said they increased CapEx and the market was like, cool, you're growing, so it's okay to increase CapEx. But the default setting of this market has been, if CapEx goes up, you sell off the companies that are supplying that CapEx. And maybe that's what we're seeing here potentially today. SMH, that's up 2%. IGV, that's up 4%. NVIDIA got to 225 for literally a millisecond, right back down to 222 on that red candle. Where is Tessie? Flattish at 347. Broadcom, are we red? Broadcom, okay. Thank goodness Broadcom is great. Everything NVIDIA said is unbelievably bullish for Broadcom. So I am not sure why that one took that big of a hit. It almost went to below 350 yesterday. 363, that's up 2.7%. Did hit 367 at one point. Netflix, that's down. Apple, that continues to go down. Nebius also losing some of this love. Still up at least on the day, but not seeing that excited momentum that would carry the name much further. Reddit's also down as that's getting hit. Apple still red. Snapchat red. Meta. So yesterday, the biggest story of the day, right, was Meta and the state lawsuit that they settled with, $26 billion. I found out they're paying that over 10 years. Or they're paying the $16 billion over 10 years, the $10 billion of legal fees. I don't know if they have to incur that for Q3. But the $10 billion or the $16.8 billion will be over 10 years. So at least that's not going to be the biggest hit in Q3. And then number two is $5.3 billion of that is contingent on YouTube and TikTok matching Meta's new restrictions on teenagers. So, it's definitely not a small amount of money, but it is something I think the street can move on from. But the stock itself still down from where it was yesterday at 593, now at 572. Tesla 347, Broadcom still 364. Palantir getting a bid as it should with the software names going up. I mean, software's not dead. It's just that simple. Reddit, Shopify, Palantir, Salesforce, ServiceNow, Figma, Zeta. I mean, so many opportunities this year were given for about 3 months on these software names. Salesforce 237, that's up 15%. I mean, it deserves it. At the end of the day, the numbers were strong. The Claude partnership is a little confusing, but the market is also about perception versus reality. And if the Claude perception from the street is bullish, then the stock's going to go higher. And that's what you're seeing right there, up 15%. CrowdStrike as well, although I think the multiple is pretty aggressive here, 216, 14%. Mythos is a tailwind. And so it's nice to see the software names benefit off some qualitative tailwinds, not just the numbers, because the semis have benefited the entire year explicitly off like the potential trajectory of how big AI can be, not just the numbers, which is why the semiconductor names do trade outside of the memory stocks at pretty high multiples. So it's nice to see some of that multiple expansion coming back to the software names. Palo Alto Networks, that's up 8% as the cybersecurity names continue to go higher. SMCI is up 1.6. The software names are definitely outperforming the semi names today, which, after NVIDIA earnings, you would think it would be the opposite, but sentiment on software continues to come back and be positive, especially with some of the earnings that we got yesterday and with the earnings that we got over the past 2 months with Palantir, Shopify, etc. Rocket Lab, this one continues to get hit. I am very curious where they're taking Rocket Lab. Very curious. SpaceX right there, 139.56. That's flat. Rocket Lab's been going down almost 1 to 2% every day for the past week, while SpaceX has kind of been flat. So it's not even following SpaceX that much anymore. It's just going down by itself. Zeta trying to go for 30. We have not hit 30 this year. Maybe we can get, TTD being green today means that software is getting some love. How about AppLovin? Is that up today? Yeah, AppLovin's also getting some love. CoreWeave, we were at 90. We are now at 88. It's losing it. That money is going to CrowdStrike, up 15%. Amcor was up 7 based on the Bank of America upgrade. Still up 6. Is Amazon getting hit because of the GPU capex? Maybe. Again, Amazon said they were going to buy another 2 million GPUs, which is a lot of money. It's billions of dollars that they're spending. But once again, it kind of sucks to be like, oh, they're spending all this money. The street doesn't like it. It's like they just grew 37% on AWS. And Jassy said, we will stop the capex if we don't see the demand. Remember, the stock shot up to 280 from 230 within 48 hours after the earnings because the way they communicated about capex was like something the street wanted to hear. Like, why is it down again on those same concerns around capex? It's just becoming a weird game that we already know the answers to, but we have to continue to play over and over again. And I guess it's the nature of this market, just not feeling confident that the capex will result in an ROI even after the Nvidia earnings that we just saw. 223 on Nvidia, that's up 6%. Marvell's up 1%. Salesforce up 16%. Viva, they also had a great earnings. This is healthcare software, up 17%. I mean, pretty much every SaaS name right here is getting some love. SoFi, there you go, 19. Nice little breakout. So this is the 5th time, I believe, in 2.5 months that SoFi has had a breakout above 19. Every single time it's held it for, I think, max a day and a half. The first time was a couple weeks after that Basis Points podcast where it got a nice little move, then it faded. Then it was a couple weeks later, got a nice little move, then faded. It has not been able to hit 20 yet. It is eligible for the S&P 500. Meta loses 570. It would be nice if we can actually get a close above 19 here. 569 on Meta, as that's down. ServiceNow 133. I mean, I could definitely see this thing making a run for 140 here. It was at 140 back at the end of May before it collapsed back to 80. So it's been a while for these names to kind of be stuck in this range. Marvell 250, as that continues to go green. People are concerned about debt and ROI. That is fair. If you mean United States national debt, I think people are only concerned about that when bond yields go up, which bond yields have been going up. So that is something to be concerned about, sure. But they've also come down a little bit this week, and hopefully they continue to come down. In terms of ROI, I think we're seeing the ROI in a lot of these companies. I mean, S&P earnings growth, 85% of companies have beat by an average of 8% or more. We are on track for 30% S&P earnings growth. We haven't had that in 2 decades. Like, the growth is there. Palantir 182, finally breaking above that 180 level, up 2.4%. And the reason that growth is there is because AI is working. That's why Nvidia is selling all these chips. Now, at the end of the day, if you're still skeptical on AI working or having any meaningful change in the enterprise or for consumers, that's a fair skeptical fear to have. But the numbers are just not validating that fear in any meaningful way. ASTS, that's back above 60. That was below 60 last night. It went so far as for Jensen Rubrik also getting a mass move. They're going to have earnings today after the bell. That's up 9%. This stock felt like $50 in the SaaS apocalypse. So a lot of these names up more than 100% from the lows. Jensen went so far as to say that we've already achieved AGI in certain sectors. I think, you know, if there's anything I would nitpick, it would be that comment. I felt like that was a little exuberant and excited because what is AGI really? I mean, he didn't really give any context. He just said, yeah, you know, we've already achieved AGI. And so I'm like, okay, have we? Like, and what exactly is the impact of it? You know, what does that mean? So, you know, but the fact that Jensen was willing to say that means that his argument is like, hey, it's really working. Like, it's happening. And now it's just a question of figuring out exactly how is it happening? What are the impacts of it? How monetizable is it? And if there's AGI in certain sectors, what does it look like for AGI in other sectors? And how big of an impact does that actually become? Are we talking about many tens of trillions of dollars of value globally that we're going to see from that? NVIDIA trying to get back up to 224.50. But the numbers in and of itself prove that whatever NVIDIA has to do to get those types of results, they are absolutely executing to get there. D-Wave, that's up 4% as that goes green. Some of your quantum names getting some love. Rigetti, that's up 4% as well. Palantir, are we going to go for 183? SoFi, 1927. Okay. A lot of names outside of the semis are actually picking up the bid right here. Shopify, that's up 2.6. Where's Bloom? Bloom is up 1%, but down from 225. Why is Reddit not participating? I think Reddit is in the doghouse until they address what's going on with search traffic referrals. Like, the street seems to really be upset about that. Even after S&P 500, the street is concerned about that. So that's going to be up to the company to kind of make a point about how they're navigating that. But, you know, the growth is there. I think the earnings are strong, and as long as they explain what's going on there, then I think they should be fine given the growth. ServiceNow, that's up 7. SoFi, 1930. Wow, Palantir busted right through 183. Can we see 184? Okta, by the way, up 25%. After NVIDIA earnings, it's software that's winning. And NVIDIA's up 7%. So it's really NVIDIA and software together are having a good day. Everything else is kind of flattish to red. Micron just went red. But it's software that's winning. Palantir 184 has 22,000 shares. 22,000 shares. Zscaler should be up, right? Yep. Zscaler's up 10%. Zscaler didn't even have earnings, and it's up 10%. Palantir's going to get through it. It's like 4 cents. There it is. 180. Wow. Okay. The street saw the software earnings yesterday. They're buying one of the best software companies, 184.30. As that is up 4%. We have not seen this since December of last year. I am pretty sure Palantir is now green year to date by, I think, like 8%, 9.2%. Palantir is green year to date. There you go. We are finally green. SoFi also going for it, 1940. We're trying to get, there it is, 1942. Well, SoFi and Palantir together going. ServiceNow, that's up. Meta also, that just came out of nowhere. That was at 567 like 2 minutes ago. 578. Okay, now the buyers are coming in. IREN, that's up 4%. Nvidia, let's see if we can hold 225. SMCI now up 3%. You're starting to see some of the other picks and shovels participate. Synopsys, which fell yesterday after a blockbuster earnings, that's up 6%. That's green. AppLovin, that is trying to get a little bit of move. 314 up from 297. Cypher is up 7%. Applied Digital is up 4%. The Googs is almost break even on the day. Amazon's still 1% away. It's almost like a bunch of like buying algos came in the last 2 minutes. Even Reddit just flipped green. Even Tesla just flipped green, 352. If we can get Rocket Lab back to 67, that would be nice. That should probably be flipping further green, but that is now green on the day, 66.40. This is pretty cool. We're seeing a decent chunk of action right here on the software name. Bloom also got some green candles coming in. Let's see if we can hold it or if this is just price action 15 minutes into the open. Oracle 152, that's up 2%. Resistance on Nvidia, let me pull this up for, we're looking at what, 226? We got through 225, right back down to 223. There's enough sellers there that are stopping it. 226 is about 137,000 shares for Nvidia. BTC, do we have some green? BTC, we have a little bit of green, 79,340. Okay, Meta coming back to play. Wow, Rocket Lab just got an ugly candle right back down to 66. As Meta, I mean, look, the reason Meta was down yesterday, I think, was a knee-jerk reaction immediately to the 10 billion of costs, which I think is a fair reason for it to have gone down, because 10 billion of costs is a lot of legal fees. But at its core, if we like just analyze it for what it's worth, the trial is over. Like, the biggest bear case that would set a precedent for future trials and more lawsuits is done. It came with a hefty price tag, but if the market's about looking forward, that is something to absolutely look forward past. And so I think that should be a catalyst. Salesforce is having its best day since 2020. 18% up. Best day since 2020. Moderna still down 4 on those convertible notes. Cerebras loses pretty much all the gains today. Wendy's still down 12%. Roblox, that's up 0.5%. Abercrombie and Fitch, massive 40% day yesterday based on that tariff refund, as that one goes green. Again, jobless claims came in at 203,000 versus 208,000. Initial jobs claims a little bit lower than expected, which is good. S&P Global expects hyperscaler capex to be 1.3 trillion by 2027. You're seeing more of those estimates coming today. Also, the White House, as per Politico, is weighing a new round of chip tariffs. The Trump administration is considering broader semiconductor tariffs that could extend beyond chips to products such as servers, laptops, and gaming consoles. One proposal would tie tariff-free import allowances to how much companies commit to U.S. chip manufacturing, while a phase-in period is also under discussion. I think this could be one of the sneaky headlines for why the semis are red today, even after Nvidia earnings. I saw this last night, and it kind of, I mean, it's not really a massive headwind for the semis because a lot of their capex is not really contingent on U.S. manufacturing. But the point is, if there's a new round of tariffs and some of these future growth trajectories have to factor in American manufacturing of these chips, Vista right there, 140.84, that might create some potential delays in supply chains. I mean, you could extrapolate that to create some type of a argument for why that could be bearish. But it's not even official yet, right? So it's not like, I think it would be something the street would be that upset about. 222 on Nvidia, loses 225 right at the print when it gets there. Zeta, we are very close to 30. Let me check resistance on that as well. 30 would be fun on Zeta. That would be fun to see. 10,000 shares. That's actually, I don't think, going to be the hardest on a day like this with software. Tesla just flipped 352 to 349. Path is up. This one's been stuck for basically the whole year. I think it's up more than 100% from the lows, or about 90%. 1827, that's up 9%. So a lot of the, if you're in software, you're up. I mean, is there any software name that's red? I think that's where a lot of the traders are going to today, is software. Intuit's the only, and that's barely red. Every other software name, Salesforce, Snowflake, Datadog, Adobe, ServiceNow. Look at Adobe. This thing was 193 back in April. It's at 284 right now. I know it's down a lot from the highs, but still, I mean, the opportunity to snipe the bottom on a lot of these, are close to the bottom. Palantir, 184, has been massive all year. Duolingo should be green. AMD's red. SanDisk just lost 1,500. Duolingo, that's up 3%. Duolingo was at like below 100 a couple months ago. Honestly, this year has actually been a really good year for opportunities. Like, not every year is great for providing an opportunity. But this year, the space names, you know, they were cheap during the beginning of the year. Then they had a massive pump. If you didn't sell into it, you didn't sell into it. But they still gave you the opportunity to have like a doubling on pretty much all those names. Software was dead for 3 months, gave opportunities. Semis, you know, basically January, February were consolidating. March, April, May, June exploded. And so there was opportunities to buy into strength or buy the weakness earlier in the year. And then July kind of created a lot of deleveraging, which also created another opportunity for all the semis in like basically the end of July, when Nebius was at 140 and SanDisk was below 1,000. Like, this year has just been, and then cryptos pumped 40% in the past 2 weeks. Like, this whole year has just been picking your battles and having some conviction and giving yourself a little bit of time to let that conviction develop and being a little patient. And it's kind of played out on a lot of different sectors. Google right there back to 340, Amazon at 257. A-Lab and A-Net, those are also green, as SpaceX also tries to go green, 140. Omer says I'm up 47% on ServiceNow. Amazing. I think a decent chunk of us picked our software plays, and took advantage of it. Even the hyperscalers, right? The hyperscalers were dead for the majority of the year until basically end of July when the semis fell. And then Microsoft's at 350, got up to 500. Like Amazon 212 to freaking 280. Like a lot of now Meta's been the crappy Mac 7 this year, but maybe this is the opportunity for Meta that is just testing patience, but eventually can end up playing out. Zeta, did we hit 30? We did not. We got 29.98. Memory has been an opportunity all year outside of the past couple months, but nonetheless, it has been an opportunity. It's just, I think it's a pendulum. Memory is not the opportunity right now. Maybe it is the opportunity for the future, but it's not the opportunity that is being capitalized on right now. But eventually, if it comes back, it becomes the opportunity. But for those that bought, even a few months ago when it was at 500, 600, and that was up from 200, you still had another almost double left in it. So a lot of these names have just been incredible. There she is, 30. 30 Dolores for Mr. Zeta, up 6.34%. There she is. It has been a long time coming on this one. Shout out to Davis. This is he introduced me to the stock back in December when I wrote the Substack on it. It was at $18 at the time. And simple thesis back then was valuation looked too cheap for the growth. I didn't realize there would be this big of a community that was formed around it, but that community is here, and I don't think this stock is going back to the low 20s at this point. Obviously, anything could happen, but it has started to normalize a really nice base in the mid-20s, and potentially we could start to normalize a base in the 30s on Zeta. The market cap on this thing, by the way, $7 billion, doing $2 billion in revenue. Like, it's not necessarily the most expensive. ServiceNow, 137. That's up 9% on the day as that continues to go green. Amcor, that's up 6%. CrowdStrike, that's up 15.9%. Cerebras, that's still slightly flat, but it's up almost 1%. Okta, up 22%. Build-A-Bear just cut their outlook and they fired their head executives after sales fell. This is BBW. It is down 18%. That's a little ugly. Once again, a consumer play. I guess people are not buying these like stuffed animals. Guidance went to 525 million versus 550 million. As net income also went down to 70 cents versus 94 cents a year ago. The Bears, even if they try to get built, are not able to build a meaningful bear case on this AI revolution that we're seeing. SoFi right there, 1935, getting a small red candle from 1947, but still green on the day. Reddit still up 1%. Zeta getting rejected at 30, but the fact that we hit 30, I think, is the most important because now you're going to have traders coming back in knowing that the stock has the visibility to see that 3 handle on its ticker. And sometimes just seeing it is really important for a lot of traders to feel that it's possible for it to get back there. Astera Labs, that's up 4. SanDisk really getting hit right here, down 2% as well, as that's going red. This is very interesting, dude. All your hardcore Neocloud memory names just getting wrecked after Nvidia basically said the cycle's not stopping. CoreWeave goes red. Did Nebius go red? Nebius is very close to going red, but it loses 220. And your software names are the real beneficiary today. Who would have thought after Nvidia earnings, software would be the stuff that actually flips green? Snowflake, that's up 4%. Box is up 3%. Shopify trying to go for 157, maybe into the 160s. IGV, wow. I didn't even look at IGV. Dude, I think this is one of the best days IGV's. IGV is usually not up more than 2 or 3%. That's a 6% day on IGV. That's going to have all the software algos buying these names. Microsoft should be up, right? Microsoft should be up. Microsoft's the highest in IGV. Yeah, 497. Microsoft, I think, will easily get back over 500. But the problem with Microsoft is they're stuck in that CapEx algo, even if they get the benefit of software. And, it is up a lot from the 350s. Can't complain, but same thing with why Amazon's been taking a bit of a breather. Wow, Micron's actually falling now. I think people are going short now. 923. She was at 980 in the pre-market. This is either a fake out or people are legit going short. Put in the chat, what do you think the reason is for why memory's taking a hit? Zeta back to 30. Is it pricing power is so strong that the market thinks it can't get any better? I mean, Jensen basically is guaranteeing that Micron and SK Hynix are going to have really freaking good earnings for at least the next year. And still, this thing's being discounted. Shorts are coming in before Iran and Marvell earnings. Marvell, wow, Marvell 250 to 242. That just flipped to red as well. Yeah, maybe people are loading up shorts across the entire semi-complex for those earnings. Iran, that's still up 3. I don't think the semi-tariff would affect the memory name because the memory names, there's already such little supply that I don't feel like the tariff stuff is going to meaningfully affect them. If anything, it just means they're going to raise prices again, which will have more pricing power. Micron now down 2%. Flushing retail. Dude, SanDisk was at almost 1,800 the other day. SanDisk 1,463. That's down 2%. Why is AMD volumes down today? AMD, yeah, it's only 4 million shares on AMD. That's actually weird. That's unusually low for AMD. What about SPY? SPY volumes are starting to come back. We're getting out of August. Dude, we're a couple days left of August. We're about to be in September. That is crazy. SPY's up 0.5% or up 1/3%. Zeta, 52-week highs, 30-50. Look at her go. Look at her go. That 3 handle, she's beautiful. It is beautiful to see that. IGV up 6. Nebius up 2. Iren, that is also up 3. ServiceNow. Yeah, this is software owns the day, guys. Software owns the day. I mean, for a company like ServiceNow to be up 10%, given how bad the sentiment has been all year, this is the market. Maybe it's the Salesforce partnership with Anthropic. The market's just like, okay, Anthropic's not going to kill any of these companies because now they're partnering with them. Maybe really that's it. That could be the simple reason. Even if that partnership is not that material, the perception of the partnership is what's getting the street to be excited. Palo Alto, that's up 10. I wouldn't buy software today, though. Like, I don't know. This is not a day to buy software. Definitely not a day, in my opinion, to buy cybersecurity. You got to get them to chill out a bit. As much as I love Zeta, I'm not buying it at 30. Like, I think now you've got to wait for a nice red day if you want some of these software names. Like, the problem is these software names have doubled. Some of them have tripled from the lows. And like, if you buy them into strength, that's fine. But the timing matters, because if you bought the semis into strength in June, you got wrecked. Now, I think the software names probably are not going to get as destroyed as the semi names because you don't have that whole Leopold deleveraging stuff. But the upside on a rubric at 105, like, how aggressive is it? Because it was at 50. So I think, that could create some consolidation, or maybe it goes up another 20%. Like, now it's really a guessing game, but the actual opportunity, I think, has passed, and we're gonna have to wait for some deeper red days to be excited. Like, Palantir at 184 is not, this thing was at 120 for like the entirety of the year. So at this point, buying it into strength is just hoping it goes up, but you can't be upset if Palantir takes a little breather here, just given how much it's already made a move. Tesla right there, 349, AppLovin, 330. Now, AppLovin's an opportunity, but then again, do you believe management's actually going to do what they need to do this quarter to get the street to stop freaking out about their TAM? CrowdStrike continuing to move. Nvidia, this one still flat. Well, no, back up almost to the 225 at that 224 level. I think the thing about Nvidia that's been so important this year is, I know the stock hasn't had a massive move, and at the end of the day, people only care if the stock goes up back to 225. But I don't think you can blame anyone for buying Nvidia this year when, call it 170 to 200, which it's kind of been stuck at all year. Recently, it's getting above 200. Like, the growth has been amazing. The earnings have been incredible. They just delivered the best quarter in the history of the entire market with the level of size they have and level of growth they're putting up with that size. If the stock doesn't move, the stock doesn't move. But once again, we all know it deserves to be higher. You might think it's not going to get there because it's too big of a market cap and smaller names could double easily. That's totally fair. But my goodness, dude, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't think anyone's wrong for buying Nvidia. It's just the problem is this thing is so big, it might not easily give you that crazy return. But man, how are they proving every 90 days that this thing does not deserve to be as cheap as it is? With guidance, not just numbers, but guidance to make sure that those forward earnings estimates, no one can say, oh, well, what if growth slows down? It's like, well, they're saying it's not going to slow down. And how many times are you going to doubt Jensen when he continues to say the growth will continue to keep going? 225.25. Let's see if that can continue. Zeta loses 30 again. And you've got Duolingo right there continuing to be up 3%. Black Sky, that's up a little bit. MicroStrategy, is that up? MSTR 132, that's up. Wow, that's going up way further than Bitcoin. Actually, no, Bitcoin's trying to break out a little bit, 79.2 to 79.5. So you got MSTR also giving some love. Check the heat map. Okay, let's take a look at that. We are relatively red in a bunch of sectors. Yeah, actually a decent chunk of sectors. Except Nvidia and software. Except Nvidia and software. Wow. It's actually I'm surprised the S&P is holding on. That's literally that 7% move from Nvidia and some of the software names helping the S&P, but more broadly, everything's red. Palo Alto pumping because of CrowdStrike. Intel just flipped. Microsoft, did we get 500? Microsoft, yep, back to 500. Okay, that makes sense. On a day where IGV is up 10% or 5%, you can't have the two biggest holdings in IGV, Microsoft and Palantir, not really get a move. And you're seeing that right here with Microsoft at 500. Yeah, that's a ton of red everywhere except software and semis. Micron trying to make a little comeback, which I guess is fine because people are kind of rotating into some of the other names, but there's not a bunch of crazy macro headlines that we're seeing this morning. I thought this stat was really interesting. So, you know, Basent keeps saying we're going to grow our way out of debt, and so does Elon. U.S. debt growth for the past 12 months in 2026 is 7.5%. Q2 annualized GDP was 1.5%. So we are significantly underperforming the level of debt growth we have versus the actual GDP growth. And that's an issue, right? This is why bond yields are screaming the way that they're screaming, which means we're going to have to, like, Nvidia has to become a $10 trillion company. Like, it's like, if Nvidia is not going to put up the type of growth that gets us out of this debt problem, which means all the other hyperscalers will have to keep spending on Nvidia and build the capital. Like, this AI thing has to work, because if it doesn't work in our generation, I don't know what our kids' kids are going to do in this country and how they're going to navigate the probably $70 trillion of debt we hand them. I mean, this thing has to work. Like, it kind of has to happen. And it's going to be a big experiment if it doesn't. But it's either that or we get our fiscal spending in order, and I don't have any faith we're going to do that. Nvidia trying to go for 226. So, you know, Nvidia putting up these numbers is actually really important to keep the broader market feeling like there is decent momentum. IGV up 6%. Yeah, $3 billion a day in interest on debt. I mean, Nvidia is doing $1 billion a day in revenue, and the government's paying $3 billion a day in interest on our debt. And it's pretty incredible. Palantir, we still 184. We are trying to go for 185. Trying to go for 185. Resistance is 126,000 shares at 185. Yeah, I don't think they're letting Nvidia easily break 225. Let me check resistance on that. Did anyone buy or sell anything today? Put in the chat. I have not made any moves today. 226 resistance is 206,000 shares. Anyone selling their Nvidia? I mean, I did have sold Nvidia puts. Those have got to be up like 95% right now, I would imagine. Atlassian's up 9%. You're getting some love there. Yeah, those Nvidia puts are literally up 99%. Okay, so kind of had a feeling it wouldn't go to 190, which is nice. But obviously, if you bought before earnings, and even if you bought some calls at around maybe 210, 212, I mean, you're still up. So if this thing can actually bust through 230, a lot of the call buyers will get a decent chunk of love. I see some people saying I'm buying Uber, bought VST, bought Amazon. A couple people saying they sold some Nvidia. ASTS, CoreWeave, Robert sold 20% of his Nvidia leaps. Starting to buy more Rocket Lab. Nvidia's PEG ratio is what is the PEG ratio now? Can someone give me the forward PE at this price and the PEG ratio? I don't have it calculated, but if someone can give me that, it's got to be kind of ridiculous, I would imagine, with the new growth. Well, you might not be able to get it because the analysts might not have upgraded the EPS estimates yet. So you would have to do some math there to think what it would look like. Microsoft at 501, but it's cheap. It is cheap. Hector sold some Salesforce at 280 or 245. 0.5. Wow. 19 according to Fiscal AI in the forward earnings. Yeah, the S&P is getting, 29, 28 times. So Nvidia's trading below a multiple that the market's getting, which is kind of incredible. I mean, Apple, guys, is growing at like 15% and they get 35 times earnings. Nvidia's growing 106% and they can barely get 23 times. 0.6 for Nvidia. Yeah, so it's under 1 and meaningfully under 1 at 0.5 to 0.6, which is probably something that's going to attract more institutions. The problem is the institutions own so much of it. So it's like, who is that next additional buyer for Nvidia? Zeta right there, losing 30, but still 29.60. SPY at 7.68. Broadcom's PEG is at 0.43. Broadcom seems kind of obvious, man. It really does. Now, the risk to Broadcom is the OpenAI partnership not resulting in any material revenue, but I don't even think that's a risk. Like, I think this stock is a $450 stock in the next year pretty easily. I mean, it was at $450 a couple months ago. I think it was less than a month ago. And it's down for a lot of logistical concerns that are not rooted in anything substantial. It was at $494 on May 26th, and it was at $420 on August 7th. SanDisk, little recovery, but still down. So I think Broadcom should be okay. Meta internally projected it could spend up to $10 billion annually on Anthropic's AI models while developing competing AI products, according to people familiar with the companies, as per the New York Times. Meta cut some Anthropic spending this summer, but continues spending hundreds of millions of dollars monthly. Meta used Anthropic models to power and test Hatch, a planned personal AI agent product. Meta employees increasingly use the company's Muse code tool instead of Anthropic tools. Meta is developing Watermelon, an AI model intended to match Anthropic's frontier models. Its release was delayed until at least October. Okay, that headline getting Meta a little bit of love, but that's also why all their GPUs and CapEx continues to be spent on building super intelligence, which is, I think, what we're seeing. Mercy, thank you for the super chat. Thank you, Mitt, for helping out with explaining the news. Appreciate you, Mercy. Thank you for being here, and thank you for the $20 super chat. It means a lot. LX, thank you for becoming a channel member. Appreciate you as well. Paul, thanks for the super chat. Amit, do you fundamentally disagree with the idea of buying into strength, buying breakouts, or do you just mean to avoid buying into the pump and wait for a retest? I actually like buying into strength, but my philosophy has kind of changed on this. I think if you buy, there's two ways to buy into strength. You buy into strength if you genuinely believe in the company to such an extent that you literally do not care what happens in the short term on the lot of shares you're buying into strength, because you just know, like, you know in your soul, the company will be bigger than what it is today, and you just want to own more of it. That's one way to buy into strength. And quite frankly, that's worked, right? Like, when Robinhood was at 7, when it went to 30, like, that's a big move from 7. But like, if you believe this company is executing, now it's at 100. Like, buying into strength wasn't scary. So that's one way to buy into strength. The other philosophy I have on buying into strength, which has become more prevalent as I've been trading more, is if you buy into strength, it's fine, but you've got to have a tight stop loss, and you have to have like an intraday or intra-week mentality. So if you buy software into strength today because IGV is looking great, and then it gets rejected tomorrow and it feels kind of obvious that it's probably topped out or the level of momentum has faded, which is kind of what's happened with all the semiconductor names in July, then you got to get the hell out. Because you're not buying into strength if you don't have that level of conviction I just talked about to really hold on to the name, and then you're just going to end up becoming a bag holder, which all of us, including myself, have dealt with. So it's like Meta yesterday, I bought into strength, even though the strength didn't really occur because it was in the overnight markets before the massive move came yesterday morning. But I also had a tight stop loss because I didn't want to backhold. Now Meta is above where I bought it at yesterday, so it is what it is. That just comes with the game. But I have enough Meta where I didn't want to take the risk of holding more. And if Meta were to break out to like 620, 630, I would be excited to buy into strength because a lot of the chart would recover. But the question would be, okay, if this thing loses 600 pretty quickly, I cut my losses because as much as I believe in Meta, I don't want to be backholding even more unless I think Meta is $1,000 stock. And I legit don't care if I buy it at 580, 530, 540, 550, 605. Like, I just want more Meta. And I think that's the philosophy that you need to have. But I think if you're like chasing software today, given it was down so much throughout the year, and by the way, Meta's still down 30%, software is now up 100% from the lows. You can't easily be excited to buy software without having some level of restriction, unless you just want to own Shopify forever and you don't care if you're buying it at 150. But that's not necessarily the best mentality because, again, it was, it's already made such a big move in a short amount of time after being discounted that you have to really have that conviction, and you have to ask, is momentum on its side? A lot of it's momentum too. Like when Robinhood was going from 7 to 20 to 30 to 40 to 50, it had momentum because Bitcoin was going from 20,000 to 100,000. So it also made it easy last year to buy that into strength. And so I think those variables are also really important. Why are you guys saying I can't say strength, dude? Every time I say strength, you guys are like, I don't know how to say strength. I'm saying strength. Like, that's what it sounds like. Strength. I don't know why you're saying I don't know how to say strength. You guys say this all the time. The G is silent in strength. I don't know what you guys are talking about. And even if it's not, like, who actually goes out of their way to say the G in strength? Like, I don't even know how I would say the freaking G in strength. Stop saying strength. It's like nails on a chalkboard. It can't be that bad, bro. Nebius 225. Look at Nebius, that candle from 217 up to 225. Bro, people don't stress the G. How to say strength. So then why am I not saying the G? I'm not like trying to not say the G. It's just natural. Like, you're saying I'm the only one who doesn't say the freaking G in this word?
Strength.
See, she's going out of her way to say the G. Like, it's not natural. Micron getting a ugly candle right there, 935 to 924. Like, she's going out of her way to pronounce the G. That's not natural. I'm like, genuinely, that's not natural. It's strength. Strength. Like, what are we doing, bro? Strength. Like, no, it's strength. This is nonsense. All of you are wrong. All of you. All of you. I don't care. All of you. All of you are wrong when it comes to this. All of you. Yes, this is me. This is me right now in front of all of you guys. In front of all you guys. All of you are wrong. It's freaking strength. Anyway, let's see what else we've got going on in the broader equity markets and if these stocks can continue to further have some strength. Oh, we had one of the Fed presidents on. We'll take a listen to him in a second, but also let's get some coverage on Meta. The California Attorney General is live, and let's see what they have to say about this Meta settlement.
Run them out of business. And that was never the issue. The issue was the changes in business practices. Stop knowingly hurting kids. They designed and deployed dangerous products that hurt the mental health of kids. They knew they did. They doubled down on them. They lied to the public about them. We wanted that to stop. We wanted to protect our kids. $17 billion is historically high. It's the highest amount of money ever paid in a case like this. And $17 billion can do a lot of good to prevent and remediate mental health harms for kids. So that is a significant component of our case, but we're really focusing on the changes that will reduce the excessive use, the compulsive use going forward.
And I want to come back to that, but just to stay on the number itself as well. It is up to 17 billion, but I believe only 11.66 billion is actually guaranteed. The remaining, let's call it 5 billion, is what they're calling a contingency installment payment. And Meta owes that if Snap, TikTok, and YouTube all separately adopt equivalent restrictions. I guess, is that likely? What do we think are the chances that that's going to happen?
We insist that it'll happen. It'll happen one way or another. Either we're suing TikTok now, so we are looking to ensure that they adopt the similar practices and commitments that Meta did, and we are very interested in Snap and YouTube as well. We want an industry-wide solution.
They're coming for everybody. We talked about that a lot yesterday. They're not going to let restrictions happen on Meta because kids will just go to Snapchat or TikTok. They'll just shift their attention, and it's going to create the same issue. So for Meta, it makes sense to force the restrictions on other companies. But I mean, if the AG actually cares about the issue, it makes sense to go after all these companies if they're going to go after Meta.
Want everyone in the industry to be taking steps like Meta is required to now because of the settlement agreement that will protect the mental health of kids. And they can do it the easy way, or we can do it another way. And we hope that they will commit. And I'm glad that Meta called out YouTube and TikTok. That is appropriate. This is something that requires an industry-wide solution. And we are active as we speak in helping deliver an industry-wide solution.
Okay, what does that mean actually when you say, and again, because to your point, this is a very important component over all of it. And as we showed, Meta's already trying to put pressure on its competitors to adopt it. But what does it mean that you're active? Give me a sense as to what you're talking about.
Well, one way that we're active is we're active right now in litigation. TikTok. We have lawsuits all across the country. I think TikTok is interested.
Nvidia breaks 226 right here. Let's see if we can actually keep it and make a run for 226.50.
Interested in speaking with us. We're interested in speaking with them. We have communications with Snap about these issues as well. And we are very interested in YouTube, and we hope that they will come to the table and commit to these changes going forward and these commitments.
Let's go to Stacey.
I'm worried that gross margins may take a bit of a hit because of memory prices, and they got in front of that. They're guiding them, from down to the low 70s versus the mid 70s. I think it's fine. You start to look at the earnings power of this company. I mean, numbers are clearly going up. Sell side numbers went up. Buy side numbers, I think, importantly went up. That maybe that's something that hasn't happened in a few quarters, but that's clearly happening today.
Right.
And I mean, maybe just to take what Jensen said, the idea that a company that is this large could continue to not only grow, but actually accelerate off of an already strong base. I mean, it's just something that we haven't really seen before. And it really does, I think, get to the point that the demand that we're seeing here really is real. I think these things actually are being used. The question of returns, I think, is increasingly getting answered in the form that there is a return on this investment. And I was just really happy to finally see it start to really come through in the numbers. And so I was very pleased with it yesterday.
Is there something that explains its recent underperformance on earnings? I mean, was there something different this time?
Yeah, well, there was. I think importantly, the buy side is always, above the sell side. The actual investors investing in the stock, their expectations tend to be higher. And maybe you could argue for the last few quarters, they've been very strong prints, but the buy side numbers, especially into next year and beyond, didn't really go up. I think they went up and probably reasonably materially this time. So that is important. That is one difference. And like I said, there's been this big question as their next generation platform, Rubin, starts to ramp. What is that ramp going to look like? Are there delays? Are there not? There are clearly no delays. Rubin's ramping really, really strongly. And now we're starting to see the implications of that ramp on the numbers, and the growth is clearly showing through here. So we got some concrete evidence now, real concrete evidence that growth is happening.
Yeah, I mean, Stacey, you mentioned the kind of the buy side's always higher. I think if you extrapolated what the hyperscalers told us about likely spend next year, you got to something similar to what Nvidia's current guidance is looking like. One change, and I'm sure you're spending a lot of your time trying to contend with this with clients, is the complexity of the story has definitely increased. You mentioned the balance sheet for NVIDIA is a massive competitive advantage, but it means it gets used a lot, right? They're doing all these component supply agreements and locking in orders there. They're obviously financing a huge percentage and making acquisitions of this ecosystem. So is that something that's going to hold back the valuation? Because you got a $400 price target. That's $10 trillion market cap.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we'll see. I mean, I think using the balance sheet, it is a moat. And my take was this: it's as much of a moat as their technology and their software and their ecosystem. Nobody else can really do the things that they're doing. I mean, they've got, I think, just their direct supplier agreements are close to $300 billion, and this is for things like direct to memory and wafers and that sort of thing. And so they can lock up that supply much more than any of their competitors can. And you need that supply to be able to sell the product. And so that's important. And in terms of the investments in the ecosystem, people worry about, they call it circularity, and I'm a little more sanguine about it. My view has been they're generating so much cash that almost they don't know what to do with it, and they're already returning a bunch, and they're buying supply, and they can't really do big M&A. And what better use of that cash versus to invest in and grow the ecosystem around their products? And you have to remember, they're not really writing checks for most of this stuff. It's more like they're lending out their credit rating in some sense. They're backstopping stuff. I think the risks around those have been pretty clearly thought out. And they've got customers that have strong demand. They don't have the credit ratings and the wherewithal to have enough of a history that the folks that need to put the supply and everything in place for them are comfortable without that backstop. I think it's fine.
You're not seeing the market get that concerned about some of the backstop stuff like they were last week. Nvidia gets rejected at 226. Palantir back to 185 for the first time in about 9 months here. Last time we saw this was around December of last year. So about 8 months, we're seeing this get back. Nvidia also, it was at 228 last week, but it was at 205 yesterday. So 205 to 226, given every dollar's another $24 billion of market cap is a pretty big move from the lows of last night, but it is getting rejected at 226. I think they might keep it range bound in this 220 to 225 level. The big news is just software continues to make a mass move. And as Stacey said, what is NVIDIA going to do with their cash? Like, they are generating so much cash, they can keep buying back shares, but if they can proliferate the advance of AI throughout the ecosystem, that makes sense from a business perspective too. You're going to have more and more people having the finances to buy their chips. Marvell flips green at 245. Nebius, which was almost below 215, now at 224. As that's going green, some of the semi names coming back, the software names really coming back. Let's check, when was the last time Palantir was 185? Oh, we have to go back to November. Well, we were there. We were at 180 in January. So really it was December 185. So it's been since December. You're seeing that just consolidated bury start to get a really nice breakout. CoreWeave almost back to 90. Rocket Lab trying to get back to 67. Tesla also getting a move. Last time Tesla was 400 was July 13th, July 1st, or basically that first couple week of July range. And then it took that earnings dip to 297, still up nicely from that 297 level. But many of these names getting their breakouts today, software kind of being the poster child of the breakout, Microsoft at 505. And then Nvidia, at least we have this is the first quarter after the earnings that Nvidia is up 7% in like 2 years. So it's actually nice to see. It's just the earnings were so good. I think all of us are like, dude, this thing needs to be 250, no questions asked. And it's not easily getting there. And service now teasing 140. Yeah, today's a great, great day for software. And as annoying as some of the semi names have been, they're starting to come back. They're not really in a downtrend per se. A lot of these names, Bloom Energy, I know that one's kind of been hit, but at least it's still somewhat green on the day. Amcor still up 7%. Viva, another software name, up 19. Salesforce, massive day. Same with CrowdStrike, up 20% for Salesforce. CrowdStrike up 18%. This is why people pick stocks, right? At the end of the day, the index gives you, on average, 8 to 10% a year, whereas a CrowdStrike is up 18% in a day. Now, you can go down 18% in a day. That's the risk. But part of the love that people have for finding good quality companies and taking a chance on them is because when they have their moment, they really have their moment. And then, having conviction in their ability to have their moment starts getting you that momentum. Let me check resistance on Palantir at 186. Dude, we are pretty freaking close to the 190s. If you get the right set of volume coming in with the macro clearing up, I think we're going to crush 190. And once we get to 190, I don't think 200's crazy here. Now, again, that might take a lot of weeks of consolidation before that breakout. I don't know if it happens all at once, but I think we're past that 130, 140 range, which is nice to see. 186 resistance, 23,000 shares. Intel got a nice rebound as well, up for it. Look at that. Intel This was 87 this morning. It's time to see the semis come out and play right here. Okay, if the semis start flipping green and the software names start going down, we'll be back in that same long semi short software trade. Let's keep an eye on the software names. ServiceNow got a little red candle right there at 139.30. Let's see if that actually is the top for today. If the semi names start coming back, Nvidia now getting the breakout 226.20. And if it is what it is, then that's fine. Maybe the software names stop running today, but at least you'll get the semis to participate. I still have a decent chunk of a move. 227 has 150,000 shares for Nvidia. So we're going to see if we can get above that. Hyperliquid is up. Yeah, Per is up as well. 14%. A lot of these crypto names, seeing a lot of the on-chain activity continue to accelerate pretty aggressively. Can you explain the software thesis? Why are they going up so much? So they were down a lot. There's not even really a thesis. Like each company is different when it comes to software, but they were all down indiscriminately because of Anthropic being perceived as killing them. Tesla, 352. Now you've got Anthropic partnering with one of the biggest software companies, and I think the market's like, oh. And then you had, remember, Silver Lake tried to buy Workday 2 weeks ago. You know, and then obviously just massive earnings across the board. So you're seeing a lot of these narratives just die out, and it once again proves that sometimes the market gets a little too excited about things that aren't really rooted in reality. Yeah, AMD is going the opposite of Nvidia, but at least it's up from that 475 range. Are we getting the historic downturn in September for a midterm year? What do people think? I know a lot of people are excited today, but do you still think we see a September sell-off? I'll do a poll in the chat. I don't know, man. It's up to Trump now when it comes to the Iran war. I think if he ends it like early September, I mean, I think we're going to be okay. I think that'll be the catalyst. Remember, we've already had a couple of drawdowns already in July and March. But it is a midterm year, and historically, that's what ends up happening. So we're going to have to see. Crypto going up, though, doesn't feel like we're going to get an ugly September. That's, you know, very. Look at Bitcoin. There it is. Almost. We haven't seen 80 live together. It happened 2 times while I was sleeping. Well, a lot of us were sleeping over the past couple of days. Let's see if we can actually see it together here. What does September historically do? Historically, it's bad. Last year was an anomaly. Last year was really good. Historically, it's bad, but you know, this year we've had some pretty ugly months already. Intel up 5% now, 92.45. Yeah, Viva's up. I mean, you're seeing some decent momentum. You guys are all wrong about strength. I mean, you guys can keep talking about it, but you're all wrong about it. Like, real G's move in silence like lasagna, okay? Sometimes the G is silent. Sometimes it's silent. It is what it is. It is what it is. Nvidia 225. Nvidia 225.60. Dell at 468 as well. Oh boy. Okay. What else do we got? What else do we got? I think no matter what you're trading today, a lot of stuff is giving opportunities, especially in the software space. I mean, just buying that into strength right now continues to work. Broadcom trying to get a little bit of love. SpaceX back to 140. Marvell shorts have been working, or not Marvell, Moderna shorts have been working today as that thing continues to go down on the convertible notes. Solana's up 11%. Goodness, bro. All right, we got to break 80,000. We got to break it. It's time. It's $50 away. We got to break it. It is time. Let's see if we can do it. NVIDIA Dagger, thank you for the gifted 10 memberships. I believe I know who you are. He was at the Miami meetup last year.
and gave me that green NVIDIA shirt. So appreciate you, man. Thank you for working so hard for all of us at the company and doing what you do. You guys crushed it. You guys absolutely freaking crushed it. I mean, it's unbelievable numbers. So congrats to you. Congrats to all the employees, and massive, massive win right here as we're seeing on NVIDIA. 10 of you guys just got a membership courtesy of Mr. NVIDIA Dagger. Bitcoin right there, about $40 away, trying to get there. Trying to get there. What about Coinbase? We got to be green today, right? Coinbase, yep, that's up. Oh, that's up 4% as well. Would you ever come to Dallas and meet? Yes. It's been a long time since I've been to Dallas. I think Camilo is going to be in New York, so we'll definitely get him on a podcast eventually in New York, hopefully over the next couple months. But I would love to come to Dallas and explore a little bit. It's been a while, dude. I think I haven't been to Dallas in like 5-7 years. Been to Texas a few times since then, but not Dallas. So it'll be fun to come back. NVIDIA 225, AMD still 477. AV Ride just dropped a vid. Is it on X? I want to see it because, you know, I see these freaking vehicles, if that's what you call them, every day in the city. Oh, they put an autonomous driving video out there. Oh, this is good. I mean, once again, autonomous driving is not slowing down, and the proliferation of that, I think, is going to continue to be another leg up for the broader AI thesis. But yeah, there's so many of those in Jersey City. They're so nice though. They'll like stop when you're walking in the front of them. They're actually really good with like stopping and not crossing you and all that stuff. I've only ordered Uber Eats from them like once, and like it's not as convenient as someone coming to your door and dropping it off, but it still is, you know, for a cheaper price. It's like, it's pretty incredible that it can actually go from point A to point B. Bloom Energy back to 220. Guys, I don't know if I'm coming to the Hood meetup yet, or not the Hood meetup, the Hood Summit. Like, I'm still not sure if I will be able to do it. There might be a conflict with that date, so I still have to figure out. I know it's coming up in mid-September, but there's another event early in September, so there might be a conflict with going to Houston in September. But I will let people know probably in a week if I'll be there. Take-Two, they had that apology yesterday about Grand Theft Auto. That stock's down 1%. I really don't get the hype with Take-Two, man. I don't get it. I hope it goes up after Grand Theft Auto. I don't see the risk reward as easily. I mean, I do if the game is super successful, which I think it will be, but I feel like I just don't know enough about the company to literally buy the stock based on the game being a hit, even though it's kind of obvious to me the game's going to be a hit. So we're going to have to see how much the market actually cares about it. As NVIDIA hits 225, Pounter 184.40. Did we hit 80K? Dude, Webull is still, there it is. There it is. Webull was on a delay. It was at 79,999. There she finally is. 80,000. Together, we are seeing it once again. Once again, Mr. 80K. Now, it is time to go to 100K. Only 20K, not asking too much. And hopefully we can keep it going. Hood Summit's at the end of September? I thought it was middle September. Okay, let's ring the bell. There we go. Bitcoin back to 80,000. I mean, that means Hood, Coinbase, MicroStrategy definitely are going to enjoy this. 110 on Hoodie. Coinbase. Dude, if Bitcoin's at 100, Hood's going to 150. That thing's going to run. Coinbase is probably going up to 230. MicroStrategy probably gets you back to that 250, 300 range if Bitcoin actually can break out to that 100. Well, Bitcoin would have to be like 110-ish, but 100 would be massive to see. We also had that stablecoin news yesterday with the banks, which is, I think, bullish for stablecoins. It means they're embracing them. Circle right there, that's up 5.5%. And you're seeing more of this momentum. Scotty, thank you for the super chat. A gift to you because MicroStrategy is doing so well this week. Scotty, how deep are you into MicroStrategy? Is this 100% of the port? Because if it is, congrats. I mean, it's a pretty, there is something to say about picking one stock, one company, just believing in it, dealing with the downturn, and not giving a shit about what anyone says, versus analyzing hundreds of stocks and looking at all these different analyst expectations on these companies. Like, if you believed in ServiceNow at 80 and just didn't care what anyone said, you've massively outperformed, right? If you believed in MicroStrategy at 90, didn't care about all the hate Saylor was getting, massively outperformed. Sometimes it's, that was kind of, the story for me the past couple of years was Palantir and then Hood. It's like, sometimes I feel like when you're starting out, you gotta, someone asked me this the other day. It's like, how do you get started in investing? And I was like, dude, the only way you really are going to be passionate for investing is if you pick one company, in my opinion, and just learn everything you can about that one company and, put whatever money you can afford to lose into that company and just study them deeply. Now, obviously, if that company takes off and it works, like, it'll probably keep you more hooked into caring about investing because you're going to get a win and you're going to feel the joy of seeing what compounding looks like. But if you just put your money into the S&P and think you're going to really care about the market, like, you're not really going to care about the market. It's a good thing to do, don't get me wrong, because so many people still don't just put their money into the market. Bitcoin now getting a nice little move above 80.2. But you find that one name and you get so passionate about it, it'll lead you to find other names, but it'll also keep you excited about learning about all the different things that will affect that one name, because Kevin Warsh will affect your name no matter what it is, which means you got to know about Kevin Warsh. You got to know about bond yields. You got to know about why the Fed is trying to jack up interest rates. But it's got to be something that actually makes you care about the market. IBM up today. This one took an ugly hit a couple months ago, 237. Wow, BM&R breaking through 25. I mean, could you imagine, guys, if it gets to 40? I think 40 to 45 is where most people have their average. If this actually, here's the question. Let's say it gets to 45 tomorrow. Who's selling? Because I'm not going to lie, bro. There's a world in which I'm like, dude, it took a year. I might be like, you know what? For that to happen, ETH would have to be at like 5,000 or 4,000. I think there would be a ton of, but then again, I think if ETH's going to like 8,000, like, it would be stupid to sell 40, right? So it's like, I do feel like some people would be like, all right, I'm taking some of this off, at least taking my cost basis out and just, it's crazy too, because like, if you buy a stock, you shouldn't expect it to go up in a year or in 2 years. Like, you should expect it to take time. Palantir took 2.5 years. Robinhood took 2.5 years. Like, this stuff takes time. Rocket Lab took 3 years for people. It was stuck at $4 for 3. Like, this stuff takes time. But the velocity in which BM&R sold off, because it just happened to be a crypto top, is what I think pissed everyone off. But realistically, like, it's not supposed to just go up and up and up every single day. Granted, the volatility of the stock is why people buy it. So I guess there is a little bit of difference, because you're only buying a treasury literally for the volatility of it, up or down. But the point is, a thesis on any asset sometimes takes time. And I think that's what we're seeing right here. Bitcoin right there, 80.2, as that continues to hold on. Apple getting a little bit of love. Alec, thank you for the super chat. Please do a meetup in Dallas. I got to figure out the meetup plans next year. I have to do a lot of planning for it. I think New York and Miami are definitely on the list. I think Germany is potentially on the list. The problem with the meetup, guys, is just it's a lot of planning. That's why we're not doing any more for this year. We already did 4 this year. It's a lot of freaking planning. And I think all 4 meetups were pretty successful this year, and I think people enjoyed it. I think New York was the biggest one we had. It was like almost 400 people, and it was in a really nice restaurant. But, it just, a lot of stuff is flights and booking and all this. It's a lot of logistical stuff. So I think we're going to get ready. But if we do them next year, we'll try to have a couple really big ones versus like one every month, so that, people can have an excuse to actually fly out and go to it. Datadog, that's up 6.7% as well, as that continues
To go green. When is the Wall Street Journal article coming out? Probably in September or October. They're sending a photographer to my apartment next week to take some pictures. And then probably end of September, early October, they said, is when the article will be out. CoreWeave 89.25 bouncing up from 86 as well, as that continues to go green. Vegas is actually a good idea because it gives everyone an excuse to come to Vegas, and it's a fun time. And then, you know, if the meetup's like on a Saturday, you can come for a full long weekend. So I think Vegas actually would make sense to do it out. Okay, let's hear from one of the Fed presidents who was live earlier and get his take on what he's thinking when it comes to raising rates or not.
I think, boy, it's still stubborn and it's still sticky, and we've got to continue to find ways to break through. It's one data print, but it didn't allow us to really see anything clearly as far as trending. And so, yeah, we're going to have our work cut out for us as we move into the FOMC cycle.
So if the Fed were to raise rates, do you think it would have an effect on the kind of inflation that we're having now?
So the latter part of last year, I dissented a couple times late last year because I frankly think I thought at the time if we were restrictive, we were very modestly restrictive. So first of all, I don't know what we're restricting currently with the rate policy that we're at today. Saying that, I don't know the answer to your question, except I do know moving the rate does change behaviors in the market, in a macro level market.
Do you think the Fed ought to be moving the policy rate here?
So I think we need a little bit more information. What I'm trying to figure out is the demand side of what's driving both growth and inflation. So clearly there's a lot of data out there that says the technology boom, the AI element is creating demand, especially in things like commodity level prices. The question for me is how much of the GDP and economic growth is really technology driven.
And Micron continuing to get rejected at 930. The interesting thing that he's saying right there is that the reason he's talking about AI is because he's trying to make the case for, is AI actually deflationary? We know Kevin Warsh believes in that. We know people like Beth Hammock. S&P trying to go for 770 here. It's been a while since we touched it. We actually got there for a second today, then we got rejected at 770.04. You have people like Beth Hammock who explicitly don't think AI is going to be deflationary enough to create any meaningful level of a downside spiral. And that's where you have conflicting views on the Fed. I think ultimately they will decide not to raise rates because it's just not aggressive enough. But if they end up deciding we need to do it, then the whole AI deflationary thesis is not going to come to question as kind of the main argument for why they feel rates are not restrictive enough. Nvidia 224 pounds here, trying to go for 186 here. But tomorrow, 12 p.m., Kevin Warsh, it's going to be very, very important to see what he says. And I kind of think it's going to be a nothing burger, but if he can kind of outline where the committee's thinking when it comes to at least the perception of inflation, the market's going to easily price in if they're going to raise rates or not. And I mean, I think it's going to be dovish, but it's going to have hints of hawkishness, which might make it harder to figure out what they're going to do. 66.45 on Mr. Lab of Rockets. Maybe you have to decide which part of Europe you want to visit. I think if I go to Europe, it would just be a full Europe trip. Like I should do all the countries that are near each other. The problem is, keeping up with doing the show every day in the midst of traveling. Like, it was one of those logistical things to think about. But yeah, if I go to Europe, I would want it to be like a 2-week thing and try to see everything. Salesforce 248, Shopify 154. I absolutely have to go to Ireland. That has to happen. It has to happen for one specific reason. It has to happen. I would love to go to Norway. I've heard so many good things about Norway. Sometimes I watch these vloggers on YouTube and just see what it's like when they show their day-to-day in these different countries. And it's pretty cool. Wow, Figma, almost 30. I mean, obviously this is not happening because of a Figma catalyst. This is all just software running with each other, but still, it's nice. Figma was at 16 this year. It's nice to see a deeper move happening. Um, 93 million calls on Nvidia have been bought so far today as per quant data. Wow. That's a net buying premium on Nvidia. Someone just bought Meta calls, 2.5 million for 572 strikes on Friday, which is tomorrow. As you're seeing Nvidia continue to get some more of this momentum. Bitcoin, a little bit of a red candle, but still slightly green. Let's get some more analysis on the Nvidia earnings along with what we're seeing with AI. The VIX, by the way, looks like it's another yearly low at 1454.
That sector. At the same time, housing isn't really doing anything, and we worry if the Fed has to move one way or the other. I mean, the Fed on hold in general is a bullish thing, but I just wonder if you think that there are decisions to be made to figure out which way to lean in terms of either we have to get more restrictive on CapEx or the rest of the economy needs help.
I don't know why we need to get more. I mean, listen, we've had 500 billion, something like that, of global issuance this year to fund the build out. There's very little difficulty for Google issuing in every market around the world. We've seen some equity issuance. So the willingness of investors to fund the build out and the desire of companies to seek that funding is unchallenged right now, even with elevated interest rates. We know this is part of the argument against raising interest rates, that the investment is largely interest rate insensitive. Are we overbuilding? I've always said probably.
Yeah.
I think certainly we're pulling forward, we're over-earning, we're overbuilding. But I think the issue is investors, and this is really important for viewers out there that sit here and listen to a lot of people espouse a lot of these concerns. Knowing that you're overbuilding or overexpending or anything like that is one thing. Knowing when it's going to end is the important part. And the history is littered, as all four of us know, with any number of people that have pointed to any number of indications that X was going to end, and X went on exponentially further. And I think we're in one of those environments right now. And
Time has officially put out their most influential people in AI. Last year, they conveniently left a couple people off this list. I'm looking at this in real time with you. Let's see who they have on. Here we go. They're not going to put me on the list. Now, if they had the most influential comedians of 2026, I think I would have. I mean, I think I would be up there, to be honest, if I say so myself. But here we go. Elon, Dario. They put Mark Chen, Sam Altman, and Greg Brockman together. That's basically all of OpenAI. The IBM guy, ByteDance dude, Google DeepMind lady, Hock Tan, Jeff Bezos. Some of these people I just don't know. Where's Lisa Su? Where's Jensen? Larry Ellison? Can I Command F Jensen? Okay, there's no way this is true. There's no way this is true. There's no Jensen. Oh, what about Alex Karp? Please tell me that there's no Alex Karp. I think Time just wants to rage bait. I think that's how they make their money, by rage baiting. Really? Mira Murati gets on the list, but Jensen and Karp can't make it. Ilya gets on the list. We don't even know what safe superintelligence is, but Jensen and Karp. Emil, the former guy, head of Uber, he was amazing, and I think he deserves to be on the list, but Jensen and Karp don't make it. The former Meta AI guy, I don't even know who this chick is. The Cognizant CEO, why is he? I'm convinced it's rage bait. Dude, last year they didn't have Elon on it. Last year they didn't have Elon on it. And I was like, okay, say what you want about Elon, but really? Like, we're not going to have the Tesla, the full self-driving CEO, one of the biggest use cases of AI. He's not going to be on the list, really? At least they gave Elon some love this year. Yeah, no Lisa Su either. Let me Command F. No Lisa Su. Yeah, it's got to be rage bait, bro. It's got to be rage bait. It is what it is. That's crazy, though, dude. That's kind of crazy. No Karp, no Lisa Su, no Jensen. Most influential in AI. I mean, they have freaking Ben Affleck on this. What is going on? Yeah, it's rage bait, guys. It's got to be freaking rage bait. SpaceX right there trying to go for 140. Tesla 352. Service now at 136. Meta, did we get a pop? Nope. Got rejected at 581 as that's down. It's got to be. There's no way you like leave Jensen up. Like the only reason they're doing this is to like make it a little controversial. SPY 770. Dude, we're having a really nice day across a lot of sectors. Some of these stocks have been kind of stuck, but software, I think this is the best day for software in 2026. This has to be for IGV. Bitcoin having a great day as well. And then some of the semis starting to come back. Let's get back to some of that analysis here on where we think the broader market's going.
We've talked about this before, and I'll bring it up again. The famous Chuck Prince line about you have to dance while the music is playing is inexorably true right now, because the music is not just playing, it's playing very loudly.
Meantime, we've got a stalemate in Iran. And if we're really starting a new trade war with, in this case, Canada, does that negate the notion that tariffs are a one-off if they just keep coming?
Tariffs are definitely not a one-off. And I think the tit for tat, if you will, with Canada is more concerning than the alternative. But I also don't think the market cares very much right now. And when I say that, we care about Iran, we care about China, we care about tariffs, et cetera, et cetera. But to reiterate the point, the AI story is so dominant, not necessarily economically, but with respect to the market, although largely both, that a lot of these other things fall by the wayside. We are, in effect, being saved by the scale of this build-out. So I don't want to say it doesn't matter. I mean, of course it matters. And we actually, Solus has a couple of investments up in Canada, and so we're sort of impacted by this to some degree. But when you have everything, for lack of a better word, working so well right now, and it's not as good as it could be, but it's doing pretty well, a lot of this stuff is just toothpicks or some little itch rather than a larger issue.
And it is working. I mean, you're seeing the market reflected, you're seeing bond yields reflected, oil prices reflected. I know we still have some broader issues, but risk on assets. Where's gold today? Gold should be up. Gold is flat, so at least it's not down. Silver's up 1%. I mean, maybe it's just a really good day after Nvidia earnings for some sectors, but Nvidia's not down 7% or 10% like it was last quarter. It's holding on to a really, I mean, Nvidia's back to a $5.5 trillion company. Today alone, just on the 7% gain, not even on the gain from the lows of last night, they are adding $384 billion of market cap. As that continues to go green. What do you think about compute as an asset commodity? I think it will be turned into a derivative futures market. I am a little skeptical of it in the context of if there's any hiccup on the compute constraint narrative, which is why I think Micron is down right now, just based on their pricing power. What factors go into quantifying and pricing what compute is worth? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of variables, but if memory prices go down, does that affect compute? Does that make it go up? You know, does that make it more attractive because it's cheaper? Does Nvidia's growth affect compute as a process? Like, I think it's easier to bet on a stock in that compute constraint thesis than the futures product, but there will be tons of trading on it because if Jensen is right and the semiconductor industry is going to 10x, then compute absolutely will become an asset and a commodity. But commodities, you know, they tend to not have that much pricing power. So does that mean overall pricing power for a lot of these picks and shovels tends to go to zero, just like token costs will tend to go to zero over time? And what does that mean for compute? But broadly speaking, you know, if these names are very early in their trajectory of growth, then you're going to have a lot more people betting on compute as an asset class. Keel, that's getting some love. That's up 9% today. A lot of you guys are asking about Iran. I mean, there's no preview to do about Iran other than hoping they get a deal. Like, there's literally no preview or analysis that I think is relevant on Iran outside of can they get a deal? I mean, that's it, right? Like, that's literally it. This is the only thing that matters at this point. Can they announce something good? Because they're not scaling like Nebius and CoreWeave are scaling to the point where you actually are looking at adjusted EBITDA and revenue. Like, I don't even think any of those numbers matter. They haven't mattered for the past year. The literal only thing that matters for Iran is, do you have a deal that the street can bake in? I listened to the call last quarter. I remember the CEO said we are, he said all the right things. He's like, we are explicitly, he said this one thing. He's like, we don't need to do any marketing because our contracted power capacity does the marketing for us. We have, unlimited levels of demand. It's like, okay, now that's got to translate into actual deals. And last quarter, they kind of faked it with the Nvidia news. I mean, the Nvidia news ultimately wasn't that, like Nvidia saying they're going to invest in them. Nvidia's not actually investing. They have a call option to eventually invest in them. That's not a sign of confidence like Nvidia actually putting in hundreds of millions of dollars like they did into Nebius or billions of dollars into CoreWeave. Like, that's why, it popped to 70 and faded like within a couple minutes, because it's like Nvidia's not actually on their side as much as you would want on that deal. And so I think last quarter they tried to like hype up something that wasn't even that important. And I'm not trying to be overly bearish here. I'm just like, look, enough is enough. If there's this much compute constraint, this much demand, where is the deal? Same thing for Keel. Same thing for all these smaller companies. Like, they have to put up those numbers, I think, for the market to take them seriously in any meaningful way. Coinbase 191, Robinhood 111.50 as Palo Alto continues to gap up 10%. There's much more to the Iran story. Is there? Like, really, is there? I hear that all the time from the Iran people. Like, what else is there to the story? Where is the deal? Like, genuinely, what am I missing here? Because if we're going to go into some philosophical analysis about how important their power capacity is with AI, it's like, dude, none of that matters, though. Like, Jensen can't say that. Jensen has to put up big boy numbers. And even then, his stock doesn't get respect. So we think Iran can just wax poetic again about how compute constrained we are and how much demand they have without a deal? I don't know, man. Like, they either put up or shut up at this point. They really have to. And the differences between the other Neoclouds, I mean, Nebius and CoreWeave have really put up some big deals. Regardless of if you like CoreWeave's debt or Nebius's business model, they've put up serious deal flow. Iran hasn't done anything since the Microsoft deal in any serious way. So that is what I think we have to really try to see. Nvidia, okay, 227. If we get to 228, that would be where it would be at last Friday. And that would be very exciting to see if we can get there. Iran's not signing deals before they can provide that compute because negotiating terms are improving. Yeah, but how long are they going to negotiate? Like, what, there's going to be another 2 years of negotiating? Like, what is the bright line if you're an Iran investor for when you want to see another Microsoft type of deal like they got last year? Like, I just want to know, is it 2028? Like, if it doesn't happen in all of 2027, is that okay? It has nothing to do with the stock, by the way. Like, forget the stock. I'm not even talking about the stock price next. The stock price is a derivative of the deal flow. That's what's happened with every single Neocloud. It's like, what is your timeline for when we want to see the negotiating result in something real? Because if it's not now, when is it, right? Like, we are the most compute constrained. If Iran doesn't have leverage right now to get terms that are favorable, when is that going to happen? 227, there it is. There it is, as it's continuing to finally make the move on Nvidia. There was about 300,000 shares that it busted right through. Nvidia up almost 8.3% on the day, as Micron is down. That's kind of crazy. I mean, Nvidia deserves to be up, but Micron, I do not think deserves to be down. Nebius either. I don't think that one deserves to be anywhere below 230. CoreWeave either. CoreWeave should be back to 100 easily right now. Intel, that's up 3%. Even Intel selling off a little bit from the highs today. It's really Nvidia that's carried the semis the whole day. And maybe the other semis are down because the software names are up so much that it's hard for the street to go back to the semis on a day like today, but at least they're not selling off Nvidia at the same time. Okay, 228 resistance on Nvidia is 175,000 shares, which is basically where it was last week. Yeah, I agree. Even after Jensen explicitly said energy is the bottleneck, or sorry, memory is the bottleneck. These names are still not getting the type of love they want. Let's get a little bit more coverage on Nvidia as it tries to go for 227.50 here.
That all frontier AI models are built on. Listen to this.
We literally run every single model. We're the only company that I know that runs every single frontier model, every closed model, every open model. It's built on NVIDIA. It runs on NVIDIA. And because of that, we're fungible. You could use this across all these different use cases. And because we have so many developers, our ecosystem is so large and we're used all over the world, the asset is durable, it's long life, it's fungible, and therefore, it's rentable. People are renting it for great money these days. And so that's the reason why it's an investable asset.
Our next guest raised his price target on the stock to $300 from $285, adding that NVIDIA's Q3 guidance points to a solid AI spending environment. Joining us now at Post 9, Goldman Sachs senior analyst Jim Schneider. It's great to see you today. You think that the 70% growth for next year, the guidance, could surprise to the upside? We heard Jensen Huang say the demand could be more than 100%, except that supply is constrained. How do you solve that bottleneck?
I think that's all true. So the company talked about unconstrained customer demand in excess of 100%. They feel they have confidence in line of sight to a good, solid 70% revenue growth, but the gap is data center, land, power, shell, also memory, and a bunch of other components that go into all the NVIDIA racks. So that's really the thing. And I think that there's going to be upside to 70%. Our numbers are a little bit higher than that already for next year. And we think it's going to be a question of the supply chain partners kind of closing the gap someplace between that 70% and 100%.
Jim, NVIDIA's receivables jumped 55% over the last quarter. The company has disclosed $366 billion of commitments, another $108 billion in change of guarantees, $500 billion of financing in its platform. At what point does this supporting customers actually become vendor finance demand?
Yeah, I think there is some of this across the whole supply chain. You're starting to see the suppliers, which have very, very strong balance sheets and credit ratings, support some of the customers, maybe not the hyperscalers who actually have very strong credit ratings, but some of these smaller companies which don't yet. And so I think that there is...
Even the sell side, whether it's Goldman Sachs, UBS, Raymond James, they're not Bank of America, Stacey from Bernstein, they're not giving into this argument about vendor financing being a big deal. Like, really, no one's stressing about it. No one's coming out and saying this feels like a red flag. NVIDIA is still 227, which is a good thing because Jensen said this a lot yesterday. It was about, or NVIDIA now 226.30. It was about fungibility, right? He kept saying the word fungible. His argument was the demand is interchangeable. Whether this company takes it, this company takes it, this Neocloud, that Neocloud, this hyperscaler, that demand is always going to be there, which means we're just a service provider and we're using our balance sheet to make sure that that demand continues to be financed because these companies have their own demand, but they just don't have the money to be able to afford it. So, it's not, I don't know, it's not scary to me. It gets scary if like the loans go bad or the companies that they give money to can't execute because then you have bad debt in the system. But NVIDIA's been a pretty decent capital allocator. Like, I wouldn't really question Jensen's ability to put money in the right places. And, they benefited from that, and their growth is obviously an indication of it. CoreWeave 88, Sand is still down 2% on the day. Yeah, as Doug says, vendor financing is always necessary when we have a new technology. Like, it's not easy to have a technology as important as AI proliferate in the world without vendor financing. I think the other thing Jensen said is Apple hits 314 is this idea of AI being useful and tokens actually being useful now. I think we are only hitting the beginning stages of how useful these tokens become. Grokbot, a lot of people have been starting to see actual day-to-day improvements in their workflow. Grokbot is consuming a ton of tokens or generating a ton of tokens for people, and that's only going to accelerate. I mean, there's, again, still many billions of people that have probably never interacted with a large language model yet. And so when you think about it from that global scale and then how much they will be interacting with these models on a day-to-day basis over the coming decades, like, I mean, kind of feels with this growth rate, NVIDIA should obviously be lot larger than it is today. And so should all the other Max 7s that are helping make that new AI world become a reality. Nate says we have an internal agent platform here that literally does 70% of my job. I'm just the strategic mouthpiece with our enterprise customers. It's insane. Yeah, I mean, Jensen talked about that in an interview a couple of weeks ago where he said, like, a lot of the I mean, he talked about that yesterday as well, where he said, you know, we have 40,000 employees at NVIDIA. We'll eventually have 400,000 and then 4 million agents. And a lot of those employees' actual job, NVIDIA losing 226, will just be managing those agents. And like, I think a lot of software engineers are kind of seeing that already to an extent. But as of now, this agentic world is the kind of core bull case for AI. And I think we need a lot more than just agents, but the proliferation of agents across the planet over the next 10 years at a level in which they're like truly useful, because they're already showing signs of that right now, that is just going to require an extreme amount of compute. Pounded, can we get 186? We're losing 185 again, but we're holding on to the 180s. As that is up 4%. Amit's voice is better than music when I work out. I appreciate that. I really do. Even when I say strength and you guys refuse to listen to how it should actually be said because you think the G is relevant there. I still appreciate that you like hearing my voice. By the way, shout out to Golden Handcuff Breaker on X for tagging me in this. Stocks with Amit, coffee, and a balcony. I love it. Again, however you're watching, if you ever want to post and tag me, I'd love to see how people are consuming the content. So feel free to do that. But that is awesome, awesome stuff. AMD, she's kind of trying. Still kind of stuck. Why is memory and Marvell red even when everything is green? It is the question we've been trying to figure out the answer to all day. The simple answer is software is up and the market's just buying software, which is why the semis need to take a break. The more complex answer is the market is potentially concerned about the pricing strategy that, or the pricing inflation that NVIDIA is engaging in because of the memory names. Optics not as much. And as a result, they're punishing the memory stocks for it. Which again is counterintuitive because it's like you would be buying the memory stocks on that. But again, I think something flipped in June. When Apple came out the day after Micron's earnings, I mean, Tim Cook was pretty crazy doing that, but I think he knew what he was doing. He's like, Micron had the best earnings of all time. And Tim Cook's like, yeah, because of that, we're raising the price on the iPhone. I think the whole market was just like, oh, wait a second. We can't allow Micron to have the best earnings of all time because at the end of the day, they provide a commodity that now has 90% margins, which is destroying so many other parts of the other economy, whether it comes to NVIDIA GPUs and the price increases or whether it comes to consumer electronics. Now, it's not Micron's fault they're doing that. At the end of the day, it's business. More demand, less supply, prices go up. But the broader market's trying to figure out how much they should care about that. I still think Micron is deeply undervalued along with all the other memory names given the growth that they're putting up. But once again, if the market's going to feel that that can't be there forever, I feel like they're discounting it right now. Realistically, though, I think it's just software's having a good day. So your optics names, your memory names, they're taking a breather. Because even if you buy into that bear case, they're still too cheap to act like, there's not an extreme amount of growth that's still on the horizon. Nebius right there, 219. So that loses 220. Kodak says, Amit, I turned 30 today. Kodak, congrats. You and Zeta both turned 30 today. Happy birthday to you. I will see you there in a year. And I'll be 30 as well. Amit, pronounced strengthened then? Strengthened. Strengthened. Did I say the G there? Or am I still leaving out the G? Strengthened. Oh, I'm definitely leaving out the G. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not natural, dude. It's not. Like, it's really not. I'm not even trolling, dude. I'm genuine. Like, that's not natural to say the G. Hyperliquid, by the way, they came out and they said we have $1.9 billion of hype. And we have $647 million of equity financing. So that's why that stock's up 17% is hype. is having a nice, massive move here. Okta still up 26% as well. Amit mispronouncing my name. Peggy, how am I mispronouncing your name? It's P-E-G-G-Y. There's no way I'm mispronouncing. It's Peggy. How do you say your name? It's see, I'm not leaving the G's out on that one. Like I know that you gotta, say length. Length. See, okay, I see there's a G in length. 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 No, I don't freaking. It's not natural to say the G. Like I don't get it. Length. That's normal, dude. You guys are acting like that's not normal. Like, oh wow, Bitcoin 80.5. Look at a run. Hoodie, can we get back to 112 here? We were very close. Length. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you guys. I'm not actively trying to not say the G, and if I did say the G, I would be actively trying to say the G. So at this point, I'm just going to continue saying words in the way that they should be said. Bro tried to transition to Bitcoin. The green ticker won't trick us this time. Strength, length. I don't know. What's another word where there's a G that I'm not saying? Like, I don't know what to tell you guys. I don't know what to tell you. Service now getting a little bit of red candle from 139, but still holding up 9%. Mark, thanks for the super chat. With today's momentum in SaaS, how would a trader play the momentum with SaaS being back today? I think that's a hard question because there's so much momentum in SaaS today, but also so much momentum over the past month and a half that I don't know if playing the momentum necessarily makes sense because I think your risk to reward is not that great buying CrowdStrike at 223. So look, if you were day trading, I think there's a lot of ways to play the momentum because a lot of these charts look great, but you have to be in and out within a couple minutes, right? If you're talking about a long-term hold, I would pick my favorite SaaS companies and buy and hold them. I definitely wouldn't be buying calls here. Like I'm not buying calls on Palantir, not buying calls on Shopify. Like these, again, the time to buy calls is when the names are down 30 to 40%. Like that is the perfect time. It's the scariest time, but the perfect time. You don't buy them after they make that massive move. That's when usually people buy them and they get killed on buying options. Because like people buy puts when the stock already falls. It's like, no, you buy them before that happens. And you might say, well, I didn't know that was going to happen. It's like, yeah, that's why options are complicated. Like you have to make a prediction and be directionally accurate, buying or puts or calls. And it's not easy to do that. So it might feel fun to buy calls when the stock is green, but if the move's already happened, you're betting on an even bigger move. And now the valuations are not cheap compared to where they were back in April. So I think you DCA into the SaaS names you like, but playing the momentum has happened. Maybe the momentum can continue happening, but your risk reward on the momentum happening at a astronomical level is just not as stronger on your side. Micron loses 920 again at 919. Everyone's trolling you about the G. No, I think everyone thinks that the G should be said in length and strength. And I'm the odd one out. I'm on the island here that doesn't know how to talk and say these words, but Lengda, like what, like I don't know where that G comes from, bro. You guys know there's a thing called silent letters, right? You know there's certain words where letters are silent. So I don't know what to tell you. Maybe there's not a universal rule that for length and strength the G is silent, but it definitely feels like it should be. And it is what it is. It feels like it should be silent. So I don't know what to tell you. I do not know what to tell you. Rob, thanks for the super chat. Apple has historically leaned on memory makers, then didn't innovate for a decade, just buyback. So now Micron can't lean on them. Yeah, I think that's what Micron has effectively said. It's like, hey, it's not our fault that you guys didn't innovate in memory. And now you're crying to us that memory prices are higher. But at the same time, it does affect the economy when you have consumer inflation. Rise that. Well, it's kind of counterintuitive that Apple's up today with the rest of growth names being up. But it is getting some love right there at 314.84 as that continues to go green. Yeah, I need a synonym for strength now. I need to say a different word.
instead of that when I'm trying to reference it. Google says stamina. Okay, we're going to use stamina now. Stamina now. We're buying the stock into stamina. And don't tell me the M is silent or something, because it's freaking stamina. There's no way in hell I'm saying that word wrong. My hope. Fortitude. Yes, exactly. POTR, thank you for the super chat of PLN. I don't know what currency that is. That is a Polish zloty, which I'm probably saying wrong. Thank you for the 299 Polish zlotys. Deeply appreciate that. I don't think anyone's ever given a Polish or a super chat from Poland before, or in that currency. So thank you. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate all my folks from Poland. And hopefully we can visit one day. 3:15 almost on Mr. Apple. You know, the apartments we used to live at in Newark, in New Jersey, there was actually a really big Polish community there. It was the Ivy Hill Apartments. This was back when I was like 4 or 5 years old. There was actually a lot of Polish people that lived there. And we moved out when I was like in first grade, but that was my first interaction with Polish people. IBM 238, that's up 4%. And then Coinbase, that's up 7%. We're buying into the pump. Yeah, we're going to use every word other than that word at this point. Even though I still think I'm saying it right. Rocket Lab, let's see if we can get 67. Are we missing any big macro news? I think we've got pretty much everything here. There's not anything too crazy outside of NVIDIA. We talked about the Time Magazine. Bitcoin, very nicely making a move here. That's helping your crypto stocks. Software names have been great today. That's helping out. Admit you ever short stocks? Yes, but it would be on an intraday basis. I don't think I've ever held a short overnight. But I shorted Moderna last week. Dude, I shorted Moderna at 147 and I was wrong. The stock, like literally I put in my short and it's like 2 minutes later, maybe less than 2 minutes, it's at 154. And I'm just like, oh, but I knew why I went short. Like I saw losing VWAP, losing support. You saw your EMAs cross over each other to the downside. I'm like, it already had pumped so much during the day. I'm like, this is going to go down. So I was down pretty badly on the short and I just like stayed the course and then it just collapses to 141. Now I covered my short at like 146, so I didn't hold on for the whole ride, but it is nice sometimes to have a thesis on a trade. It goes against you. And then, you know, technically you're supposed to cover, have your stop loss, get out of it. I should have had my stop loss at like $1 above. I let it go like $7 above. So I was really underwater, but I was like, I can't be wrong on this. And then it had a perfect double top at 154 and then just collapsed. But like, you know, imagine I held that short for the next 2 days. It went up to freaking 160. Like, you know, so I feel like when you have shorts, you just have to be so quick to get in and out of it. Like Micron today. I mean, Micron's been a short all day, but would I hold it overnight? I don't know. This thing was at 980 yesterday and now at 916. Yeah, we will have Marvell after the bell. I'll be live with all the guys, and so we'll keep track of that. Sentinel-1, we'll have those earnings today. Cybersecurity, I mean, I think they kind of like tanked last time, but this time cybersecurity sentiment is so good that I would imagine they go a bit higher and get some love. Not being able to say the G is probably inherited. I'll ask my mom today how she says strength. And I'd be curious to see. Like I want to actually ask a couple friends. Every friend that I see now, like, have you listened to Bohemian Rhapsody? And they're like, what? Why are you asking that? I'm like, I'm just curious. Like, have you listened to this? I'm going to ask them how to say strength. Let's see if I'm correct or if you guys are right. Synopsis CEO on CNBC. Okay, let's see what they have to say. Let's see if we can get a bigger move on that stock. It dumped initially on earnings, and then at a pretty nice move. This is soft. This is also in chip.
Require different type of compute. Now you cannot deliver a new chip every 2 months. There is the limitation of physics and manufacturing. But that cycle of delivering a new chip in a shorter time period than historical will absolutely be the trend as we look ahead.
Fascinating. You're definitely in the middle of it. Stocks enjoying a good day today, up better than 11%. Sazine, it's always good to have you. Please come back soon.
And tie it to royalty, so we capture the upside as the customer deploys more of our IP.
I'm just curious. Benchmark says that Cadence has taken some of that core EDA, that electronic design automation, from you for Intel and Samsung. Are you taking any of that share back?
First of all, it's not factual. You look at the numbers, we are the leader in EDA, and we have been the leader over a decade in that category. As far as Intel goes, we're a very close partner with Intel. And Samsung, there is no way Samsung can be in the foundry business without working with Synopsys first. Then the rest of the ecosystem comes as a secondary enabler.
If AI agents here, Sassine, are automating more of the chip design, do you still need the engineers in the seats?
What we're seeing is a hybrid workforce where you need a human engineer to set up the direction, the spec, etc. And we're seeing great successes with agent engineers. So you do need the mix of both. And in our industry, that's a great thing, because we've always been constrained by the availability of human engineers. That's a very sophisticated skills to design these chips. So it gives the opportunity, when you have that hybrid workforce, to have our customer design more chips.
So kind of saying the same thing Jensen said yesterday as well, which is that there will be a hybrid workforce between agents and employees. I think that is the right messaging from all these employees or from all these CEOs, versus saying that, you know, the agents will just take over these jobs. But I also think they mean it, because you're not seeing massive layoffs for agents. You are seeing layoffs, but not necessarily, you know, agents just taking over. And you still need the orchestration and the ability to navigate what's going on with those agents. So, I mean, Synopsys crushed it. They beat on the guide, beat on revenue, beat on EPS. They absolutely deserved to get a lot more of that love. Andrea, thank you for the super chat. Thanks for keeping me updated and entertained. NOK, this is from Norwegian, this is from Norway, Norwegian Crones. Thank you for that super chat. Deeply appreciate you watching from Norway. Alec, thanks for the super chat. What strike would you buy a covered call on for Hood for the next 30 days? So remember, it's sell, not buy, when it's a covered call. So you're selling the call, you're not buying it. For the next 30 days on Hood, it's a little complicated, because if Bitcoin breaks out, I think this can go crazy, but probably 130 if I had to sell a call on Hood here. Definitely not 120. If you really want to be safe, 135. But yeah, that 130 range. Now, granted, if Bitcoin tanks the next month because of whatever happens in September, then 130 is probably a bit too conservative. But on the upside chance we actually get a breakout, yeah, that's where I would put that strike. Broadcom is next week. I think Broadcom's going to, I think they're going to destroy. I don't think they're going to have like Nvidia level growth, but they're going to have really strong growth. And the stock's not in the 400s anymore. So the idea of it getting back up there, I think is very possible. But we got to see. You mean Norwegian without the G? Dude, you guys are hilarious. The funny thing about these inside jokes is I believe in what I'm saying. Like I can't easily say the G. Like, I don't know what you want me to say, but like, that's what I think makes these things even funnier, even though it's at my embarrassment. But it's true. That's just how I say it. Micron, dude, it's really losing it now. Low of the day. Goodness, where's DRAM? Are we at 53, 54, 56? Okay, so DRAM's still not below where I first bought it at around 53.50. So I'd want to see it actually get back there. But you're not really seeing
The memory names. Is there any news with Micron? No, there's nothing that I'm seeing. Nothing in a meaningful way. Historical market data shows that September is typically the weakest month, but a positive August with year-to-date gains of 10% to 17% has proceeded mostly higher before the final 4-month periods. So if August is up at least 3% and the year-to-date is from 10 to 17%, September's average gain is actually 1% based on Carson research. So that's good to know. Year-to-date, we're up over 10%. August, it's up over 3%, which means theoretically, the last time it was actually red in that scenario was 2003. The last time we had that scenario was 2017. So it's been a while since we had that type of setup, and September was up 2%. Which means if history goes to what that has looked like, September should potentially be a decent month. But we got to end out the next 4 days of August and hold on to some of these gains. SK Hynix is up a little bit as well. 161. Let me see if there's any other news. I think we got most of it here. I mean, overall, relatively green day. So you got to be okay about it. I mean, this was a clip that I thought was interesting. Dylan Patel basically saying the majority of value in AI right now is going to 2 companies. One is Jane Street, and the other one is Meta.
Aspect of this is, and we've continued to see this, most of the value capture is not happening, right? Like most of the value that these models generate does not get given to OpenAI and Anthropic. Thankfully, so far, it is mostly just being given to the users, right? Jane Street, with their exclusive contract with OpenAI for GPT 5.6 ultra fast mode, or Jane Street, where they're like one of Anthropic's biggest customers, is generating way, 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 way more value out of the tokens they're paying for than Anthropic is generating in terms of profit, right? Because they get to, make money off of the market. Or Meta, who at one point was, rumored to be, as much as 10% of Anthropic's business. They're generating way more efficiencies by optimizing their ad algorithms or what have you, and getting engagement time 5% longer, and all these things. They're making way more money off of using these models than Anthropic. And so ultimately, and that's what's required. So sure, if you had 1 million new software engineers, the cost per software engineer would also fall.
One thing I'm confused about is, does the market come into equilibrium? And if it comes into equilibrium, would you just expect the price of compute to equal whatever Anthropic and OpenAI can generate from it, or be very close to it with like a small amount of markup for Anthropic and OpenAI? Like right now, it's really weird that there's a 4x or more difference between what compute sells for and how much money Anthropic can make from it. And in a world where the revenue per gigawatt continues to increase, if Anthropic's ability to monetize a gigawatt doubles or triples or something, it'd be weird if then the gap continued to increase. And so Anthropic, just by like having some software, having some weights, can take something that cost them $10 and then turn it into $100.
Yeah, so there's a bit of this is always a fun question, right? Which is, where does the value go in AI? AI is generating all this value. You've got the end user, which I think we all agree is generating more value than anyone else. Hence, they're paying a lot for these models. But then you have, the app layer. Well, so far, the app layer has generated very little value. And you've got the model layer, which, again, up until a year ago, was generating negative gross margins and is now generating massive positive gross margins. And looks like it's on the path to generating, $100 million per megawatt. So turning, $10, $15 into $100, as you said. But if we go back again a year ago, the hardware supply chain was generating all this gross margin while literally everyone else was losing money on it. OpenAI and Anthropic were just plowing VC money in. And as were many other startups, and many of these hyperscalers are building infrastructure without knowing if there was going to be a payoff. So ultimately, you had this negative value being created on the model layer almost, if you will, because they were selling the tokens for less than it cost them on the infra side. And all the values being created used at the chip, the fab. Initially in 2023, the memory guys were making no money off of HBM or memory for AI, even though theoretically their value they were delivering was humongous. Right. Now you've got, well, actually TSMC makes way less value than the memory guys. Is that actually how much, they're capturing less value, even though, so the value capture shifted around a lot.
Yeah. And I think that value capture will continue to shift around a lot. Like, this is kind of what Nikesh was saying from Palo Alto, like where is the moat for the Neoclouds? And right now they're valuable because of supply constraints. Will that be the case in a couple of years? Bitcoin right there, 80.4. The question here is also really important. Will the cost of compute be equal to what it takes to create that compute with a slight margin, which is basically what happens with oil, right? Like for any commodity, you have a cost to make it, and then you have a slight markup. A lot of geopolitical things can affect it, but it's really just supply and demand that determines what's the optimal price for everyone to make money in the ecosystem. But you don't have like 90% margins on Chevron because that doesn't happen with products like oil. And theoretically, it probably shouldn't happen with products like compute, but because there's such a constraint in the system that seems like it's going to last for a while, that's what creates that pricing power. So I think the key here is to own the names that are going to benefit regardless. And I don't know if the model companies are the ones that are going to benefit regardless. In fact, they're the ones that I think are in the crosshairs of benefiting the most versus the hyperscalers, obviously the Nvidias of the world, and then some of your picks and shovels plays. But it will be something that has to play out over the coming years to see if we see where the value goes from sector to sector when it comes to AI. Chris, thanks for the super chat. Iren's data center in Spain, Australia, they bought Mirantis, which was a software company. I agree that they need to have more deals, but they have a moat on the construction process. I agree with your analysis on the moat with data center capacity, power capacity, and land, which is obviously becoming a bottleneck when it comes to building these data centers. There's nothing bearish to say about that. It's just, again, execution is what the Neoclouds trade at really good multiples, except Iren, right? So like for them to get that multiple expansion, I think it's purely a question of execution. So they have everything going for them. Today after the bell, we're going to see if that can result in a meaningful deal that the street gets excited about. Sunil, thank you for the super chat. I have sold a covered call and Palantir at 170, expiring 918. Should I roll or wait? Well, this question always comes down to, if you bought Palantir at 120 and you sold a covered call for 170, and maybe you got $5 of premium, so your actual exit is 175, are you comfortable selling that 100 shares of Palantir at 175? And that's a personal question. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. There's a reason you sold it at 170 in the first place, right? So it's important to remember that. If you're not, then yeah, I would probably roll by now. I mean, at this point, if your break even is probably 175 to 177, Palantir pushing 183, 185, could this easily come back down to that break even? Yeah. Today's a day where it feels a little scary because SaaS is running, but it's not a Palantir thing today. It's like all of SaaS. So if all of SaaS dumps in the next week or two, Palantir could go back to 172, 173, and your roll could be easier. So it's really a question of, do you think that range will be respected, or do you think it's in a breakout? And honestly, no one knows, but it definitely feels like it's respecting 170, given it's been almost 3 weeks and it's not been below that. So I think rolling here, you could still get a pretty decent credit and probably get up to that 190, 195 strike in about a month. Lucid, is that getting hit? That's up 5%. Oh, that just got a green candle. Why is that up? What is so good about Lucid right there? I don't know. Why are you guys asking it? Do a lot of you guys have Lucid? Do people have this name? I have no idea why it's running. I don't see any headline. The Saudis buy more into that IGV. That's up. Yeah, their management does dilute every time. Donald Trump buys Lucid. Trump goes long Lucid in filing seen by CNN. Okay, but hold on. He probably bought a ton of stuff if there's a new disclosure. If it's only Lucid, then that is saying something. We know Trump has a good relationship with the Saudis. I mean, that could be, even if you don't own it, something that's tradable news, to be honest. But I kind of think if it's a look, Trump has made 1,000 trades in June. He's bought a ton of stuff. So singling out Lucid is not that impressive unless he took a massive position in it. It's crazy that they're saying Trump bought it. because at the end of the day, whoever's managing his money is responsible for it. Up 9% right there. Lucid Group is in focus after CNN reported that President Donald Trump initiated a long position. Are they just using his disclosures from June, though? Because that would just be pure clickbait. Right? Like, he also bought ServiceNow. He also bought Palantir. He bought a ton of stuff. This would have to be a new disclosure. If it's in the old disclosure we got 2 weeks ago, then there's nothing relevant here. But Lucid obviously making a move, up 11%. This is from the June disclosure. Okay, so then this is a nothing burger. This is absolutely a nothing burger. This might actually be a good short, to be honest. There's no reason for this to be pumping. Every name that he bought should be pumping then. Singling out one stock in 1,000 trades is kind of dumb, if that's correct. He bought it on 624, less than 50K. All right, what are we doing here? What are we doing? Someone's trying to pump this stock up. That's why it's moving. Also, why is CNN reporting it? CNN doesn't report stock stuff like this. Like, do the Saudis tell CNN to report this to get this to move? Like, if anything, it should be like CNBC or Bloomberg. There shouldn't be CNN. I don't know, man. The volume. Lucid's always been a Wall Street bet stock. This could be the catalyst it needs to go crazy, but it's also been dead for a while. Usually these catalysts get faded so quickly. Someone in CNN bought it, dude. It's so. Why is CNN, out of all news media organizations, reporting a Trump buy? Something that happened on June 24th that it's already known about. Bitcoin continuing to make its move, and then Hyperliquid also. I dare you to short it. I don't want to short this thing, man. But the problem is people are kind of crazy when it comes to this stuff. I mean, Wendy's got up to $9, bro. When you have a Wall Street bet stock, people can take it to crazy levels. That's weird. The Micron, goodness gracious. 913. Are we actually going to lose 900? That would be wild. CNN's pumping it now so his portfolio manager can sell it for a profit. That would be kind of crazy, dude. That would be kind of crazy. Tesla, 351. All right, guys, I think that's it. I think that's what we got. I'll be joining Tanner's stream at 3:45, so it'll be the market close, but it'll be joining Tanner. And I think we're going to listen to Iren. We got Iren, Marvell, Rubrik, Affirm, Workday, SentinelOne, Ulta, Autodesk, Gap. So we have a lot of these earnings to look at. I mean, memory being down today is still kind of crazy after what Jensen said, but maybe we can get a rebound. Iren and Marvell will also be really important for the broader semi space. And then obviously Nvidia, at least getting a nice little 5% move here, 7% move, and holding on. Yeah, this Lucid thing is weird. I would be a little careful with this, but maybe it continues to get its pump. Software is also fading off a little bit. You're seeing some of this stuff kind of take a break, but still a massive, massive day for software. And overall, still a good day for NVIDIA. Is Steve live? Steve wasn't live yesterday because he had a meeting he had to attend. So he had to leave home. Yeah, he is live. Okay, cool. So let's do word of the day. And then we'll be done for the market open. Again, a big, big thank you to everyone who supported yesterday with the Wall Street Journal there. Deeply appreciate it. I know you guys played into the joke, but it was super funny. And, you know, it was cool. Like, it was just, we were all kind of showing off the community that we built. And I think she thought it was hilarious. And she was also really impressed by just like the energy and the excitement and the 3 hours of nonstop talking and the chat going back and forth. Like she was like, this is a whole new universe that we've created. And, you know, I'm deeply grateful that I get to do this every single day and that people continue to enjoy it. So the rainbow spam, she was a little confused about. I had to explain to her what's going on. She's like, why are they spamming rainbows? I was like, well,
There is a reason. But overall, it was fun. It was really good. Russell said he made $36 in a minute with Lucid Puts. Congrats. Not bad. Not bad at all. All right, so word of the day. Chat went soft yesterday. Dude, I thought you guys would be a little bit more aggressive, but like so many of you were actually supporting versus like bullying. I was like, wow, everyone's like excited for the Wall Street Journal. So it was good. It was very good. Super chats of Myth saved my life. Like it was so funny, but it was also just like playing into it. So I thought it was cool, man. I thought it was cool. My mom didn't even know that, you know, the reporter was cool. So I texted her in the morning. I didn't want her to find out through YouTube. And so she called me and asked how it went. And it was fun. It was super cool to see that happen. All right, word of the day. What do we got? Anastomosis. The connection of separate pathways or networks so they begin to interlink and reinforce one another. The anastomosis of AI, robotics, and energy infrastructure could create opportunities that none of these technologies could produce independently.
Anastomosis.
Oh, there you go. That was almost perfect. Anastomosis.
Anastomosis.
Anastomosis. Okay. Maybe it wasn't perfect, but it wasn't horrible. So that's what we got. That is the word of the day. Thank you all for being here. Congrats to everybody on NVIDIA earnings. Hopefully we can keep this market, maintain this momentum. Steve and I will talk a lot more about this on basis points. Had the hair out for 4 days in a row. It's kind of crazy, dude. Like 4 days in a row of having the hair out. It's kind of wild, but maybe we've kind of come to a agreement of what this hair looks like. I'm not doing anything in the day either. Like literally nothing. No gel, nothing. It's just waking up and maybe throw a little bit of water in it, but that's it. So that is what we are doing now. What do we spam Steve with? That is a good question. Let's put his link in the chat. What do we spam? Yeah, someone called me the Indian George Michael yesterday. That's the guy who does the song, right? The Tonight the music plays so loud, right? That thing? Right? That's it. That's it. Tonight the music. Yeah, tonight the music seems so loud. Yeah, that guy. I thought that was hilarious. Careless Whisper. I thought that was pretty hilarious. That was cool. Steve got blocked by Ed Zitron. Okay, how do we troll this? How do we do an Ed Zitron word? That would be funny. How do we troll him with Ed Zitron? Did he really get blocked by Ed Zitron? That's correct. Dude, Zitron doesn't want the smoke. Yeah, he blocked it. Wow. Dude, why is he so scared? Like, he's not, like, all these podcasts he does, it's just him talking. Like, he's not really done a real debate, bro. Like, a real actual debate with someone who has a different perspective. That's incredible. All right. I guess that's what we got. No, we're not going to do Zitron is right. What did Steve say? I think Steve invited him to come on basis points. And I think Steve also said, no, Steve was like, Steve's tweet was funny. He was like, what are you so mad about? I think maybe that's what pissed him off. Maybe that's what pissed him off. Let's do what's a basic word, bro? What's a fun word? Something that Jensen said yesterday, maybe. Is Micron about to lose 900? Is it? Goodness, dude. Wow. Who's really selling this off today after what Jensen said? Down 3% right here at 907. Let's do fungible. There you go. Let's do fungible. Let's do fungible. Oh, that word's kind of boring though. Claude Force. Well, Steve owns Salesforce, so he's probably happy about that.
We need something pretty basic here. I don't even know. What are you even saying? I'm saying, what are we going to spam Steve? Usually we spam Steve with a word. And it's funny because he's like, why are you guys spamming this? But he knows it's coming from us. Let's do... Strength. He's not going to get strength. He's going off right now. Milk Force. Okay, let's do Milk Force. We're doing Milk Force. Danny says Milk Force. Let's do Milk Force. There you go. That's what we spam Steve with. Milk Force. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. I'll be back on the market close. We'll have Tanner, Jose, Neil. We'll get into the rest of these earnings, and we will keep going from there. Thank you all again for joining. I will see you guys. Chad says he should be in the penalty box with that stupid ass poem. Hold on. I got to show this. I got to show this. This shit. Steve put out a poem yesterday. Did you guys see this tweet? Steve said, I asked Claude to write a poem about Nvidia. Hey, Bears, it's Jensen again. Nvidia jumped over the moon. The Bears hid their eyes when their top line arrived and the shorts covered all by noon. Jensen walked up to the podium in his jacket of leather so black. He beat on the top, he beat on the bottom, and sent every bear thesis back. And then it talks about some little piggy stuff. This is just hilarious. It's pretty cringe, but it's still kind of hilarious. Chad was like, you know, you don't have to post things, which was even funnier. All right, thank you, everybody. I'll see you guys on the market close. I ran Marvel. We'll be back after the bell. Jose, myself, Neil, and Tanner. And we'll keep going from there. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you all. See you guys in a few hours. Bye, everybody.